Chapter 17:11. The ancient silver tree demigod of the nature race finally threw out two high-level modified, divine-like source artifacts. One of them was a string of beads that emitted a gentle emerald light. As soon as it appeared, it bloomed with emerald light, forming a sea of emerald light that enveloped the entire space. This is a means of control. Long Yu's heart skipped a beat. After he was enveloped by the emerald light, he felt as if he had fallen into a green swamp. No matter what he wanted to do, he would be slower than usual. This was the first use of the emerald bead. Then, the second use appeared. All the emerald light around Long Yu quickly gathered beside Long Yu, forming a giant emerald ancient tree. Then, countless branches of the ancient tree entangled Long Yu. Even if Long Yu activated his pure body naturally, he could not resist the entanglement of the tree's emerald green branches. All the power in his body, including the Deathflow divine power, was actually sealed by the power contained in the emerald green branches. This, the second use of a high-level source artifact, is indeed extraordinary. Long Yu was shocked. The tree was using something on the level of the dark flame ghostly chains, and it was even more terrifying than the dark flame fault. It sealed all of Long Yu's power in one go. In the next moment, the emerald green branches changed again. Countless saw-like teeth appeared on them, and they bit down on Long Yu's body. Book of Shadows. Immediately, Long Yu did not dare to be careless. He immediately activated his last means of survival. After the Book of Darkness evolved into a divinized, mystic ability, it wasn't sealed even under such circumstances. It wasn't like the other mystic abilities that had been sealed and couldn't be used. When the pages of the Book of Shadows and Long Yu's small world flipped, he instantly turned into the surrounding emerald green branches, becoming the purest power and fusing with them. Even the strongest ancient silver tree demigod of the nature race could not find any trace of Long Yu. Although it was very familiar with its own power, it could not tell the difference between the power of Long Yu's incarnation and its own power. Of course, this did not mean that it could not find Long Yu. For a very simple reason, the power that belonged to it could be controlled by it, and the power that Long Yu was pretending to be would definitely not be controlled by it. Very quickly, the emerald green light gathered into a single beam and gathered towards the side of the silver ancient tree demigod. In the end, only a wisp of green light remained where it was. It was none other than what Long Yu had transformed into. If he wanted to, Long Yu could naturally move together with the green light and disguise himself better. However, there was no need for that. His current enemy was the most powerful demigod in the entire Wild Sandstar Zone. If he continued to disguise himself, it would be impossible for him to suppress Long Yu. Furthermore, Long Yu's goal wasn't just to escape. If it was just to escape, he could easily activate the immemorial rain bridge and leave this place. Therefore, he could not run. He could use it to save his life, but there was no point in continuing the disguise. At this moment, the most powerful demigod of the Golden Light Oracles also activated a high-level modified divine source item. It was something similar to a lightsaber, but it did not have a hilt. There was only a blade, as if it did not have a specific shape. Just when Long Yu returned to his original form from the emerald green light, the blade of the lightsaber instantly turned into a giant sword that pierced through the void. Pitch-black void vortexes were born where the lightsaber passed, bursting out unparalleled, devouring power and swallowing everything around it. Those void vortexes were not deliberately created by the lightsaber to attack the enemy. They were just incidentally created. However, they were enough to swallow some demigods whose power density was 60 or 70 times higher and roll them into pieces. It was not hard to imagine how powerful the attack ability of a lightsaber was. Before Long Yu could react, the lightsaber had already reached the top of his head. This is a pure attack type high-grade origin item. Moreover, it has 3 different uses. Each use can double its attack power, making it an extremely terrifying attacking method. Long Yu immediately saw through his opponent's methods. A pure attack was nothing to be afraid of. Book of Shadows, transform. Long Yu activated the Book of Shadows, and in the next moment, it turned into the same power as the lightsaber. When the lightsaber fell, Long Yu once again successfully merged into it, and he did not suffer any damage. The demigods of the race of nature and the race of oracles were all astonished by such a method. This kid clearly only had a power density of 56 times, but he could actually fight the most powerful demigods of both sides to such an extent. It was too terrifying. High-level source items, divinized abilities, and ancient god tattoos were used, but they still could not do anything to Long Yu. Just by relying on the Book of Shadows, Long Yu seemed to be in an invincible position. However, it could be seen that the current Long Yu in front of the two magnates could only defend himself. It was impossible for him to counterattack. Although he could withstand the attacks from the two magnates, he himself was not a threat to them at all. Even the Deathflow divine power was easily blocked by the opponent. Even Long Yu's Dark Flame, Ghost Chains, and 4 Symbols Death Prison have been activated, but they have been easily blocked by the opponent's high-grade defensive origin items. The difference in power density between the two sides was too great. These two fellows are the most powerful demigods of the Wild Sandstar Zone. As long as I suppress them, it is equivalent to ruling the entire Wild Sandstar Zone. There is nothing else to be afraid of. In that case, it is about time to use the 9 Hell Tablet. Long had been thinking about whether he should use the 9 Hell Tablet or not. The current situation was very clear. If he did not use the 9 Hell Tablet, there was no way he could defeat the opponent. The best result would be to escape with the people who came out of the void with Divine Palace. However, Long Yu did not know when the others would come out. He had to hold on until everyone came out before he could leave. This was too difficult. The opponent was one of the two magnates of the Wild Sandstar Zone. Perhaps they would find a way to break his Book of Shadows disguise during the battle. If that was the case, he would have to use the 9 Hell Tablet if he wanted to hold on. Long Yu had never thought that his Book of Shadows was invincible. Not to mention anything else, the Book of Shadows could only disguise as one type of power at the same time. If the opponent had 2 types of power at the same time, it would be very difficult for him to use this method to avoid it. It was just that the opponent had not thought about this yet. It was only a matter of time before the opponent found this flaw. It was better to defeat the opponent before that happened. Long Yu raised his hand, and a pitch-black stone tablet slowly came out of his arms. Soon, it stood in the entire void, emitting a dense killing intent. He had taken out the 9 Hell Tablet, but how to use it was a new problem. In the past, he had directly activated the 9 Hell Tablet and hid inside it. When the opponent attacked the 9 Hell Tablet, they would naturally be destroyed. But now, Long Yu found that he could already control part of the 9 Hell Tablet's power when he stepped into the 5th layer of the core space of the 9 Hell Tablet. If that's the case, Long Yu raised his hand and his eyes flashed. The 9 Hell Tablet instantly flew towards the ancient silver tree demigod. The deathly current divine power surged out from the 9 Hell Tablet. To Long Yu's surprise, the Deathstream divine power that gushed out from the 9 Serenity's prison steel directly transformed into a terrifying power that was 90 times the density of the power. It suppressed the ancient silver tree demigod in one fell swoop. The 9 Serenity's prison steel fell and directly suppressed the ancient tree. The ancient silver tree demigod activated defensive high-grade source items, and various defensive barriers appeared in front of the 9 Hell Tablet, but they were easily destroyed by the deathly current divine power around the 9 Hell Tablet. As a deathly current divine power vortex appeared from the 9 Hell Tablet, the ancient silver tree demigod was suppressed by the vortex. Although it would not be killed by the death current divine power whirlpool, under such circumstances, it did not have any spare energy to deal with Long Yu. All of its energy had to be used to deal with the death current divine power whirlpool. Otherwise, its life would truly be in danger. It's a pity that there's only one 9 Hell Tablet. It can't suppress 2 giants at the same time. I have to kill one first. Long Yu raised his hand, and the 9 Hell Tablet floated up again with a terrifying aura. The deathly current divine power circulated around it. The ancient silver tree demigod had a chance to catch its breath, but did not launch any attacks at Long Yu. Instead, it was recovering its injuries as quickly as possible. The deathly current divine power surrounded its entire body and caused a lot of injuries to its body. Some of them were even permanent. If it was not treated as soon as possible, it would affect its future cultivation. Even the strongest demigod was suppressed for a while. At this moment, the demigods of the nature race and the oracle race were truly shocked. Although the golden glowing, strongest demigod of the oracle race did not face the 9 Hell tablet head-on, it was also deeply afraid of it. Judging from its aura and the things that the ancient silver tree demigod had suffered, it was obvious that the 9 Hell tablet was an extremely horrifying existence. I didn't know that the 9 Hell steel could also enhance the divine power. It can increase my divine power of death to 90 times the strength density, and then I can attack the enemy with it. Such a method is already not something that regular demigods of alien races can resist. Even those with 90 times the strength density can't resist it. It's a pity that with my current strength, I can only use the 9 Hell tablet for 10 seconds. I have to find a way to either kill them or make them surrender. Chapter 17:12. Right now, the 2 giants were the strongest in the entire wild sand space zone, and their strength density was more than 90 times. If he killed them, Long Yu thought for a moment and shook his head. If he killed these 2 fellows, the entire wild sand starfield would be like a group of dragons without a leader, and it would be too difficult to manage. Long Yu also didn't want the entire wild sand starfield to become a chaotic place. It would not be good for him to collect and plunder cultivation resources. Therefore, the best solution was to make the 2 of them surrender to him. In such a way, they would be able to manage the entire wild sand space zone for Long Yu and bring the most benefits and training resources to Long Yu. It was impossible for Long Yu to fight with the 9 Hells prison steel all the time. He had to improve his divine power after all. Therefore, the training resources that he needed were enormous. Even if he killed the 2 strongest demigods in front of him, the other alien species in the wild sand space zone would not give all the training resources to him obediently. They would hide them and try not to be discovered by Long Yu. In that case, Long Yu would not be able to do anything to them. If he killed the 2 strongest demigods in front of him, the other alien species in the wild sand space zone would not give all the training resources to him obediently. They would hide them from Long Yu, so that Long Yu would not be able to do anything to them. This was an entire space zone, almost 100 species. There were trillions of creatures in each species. It would be impossible to kill them all even if Long Yu died of old age. The range of space zone was too vast. The key point was that Long Yu was an outsider. To the wild sand star field, Long Yu could be said to be an invader. Towards invaders, all living beings would subconsciously hate them. But if the 2 giants of the nature race and the oracle's race were to rule the wild sand star field, then there wouldn't be such a problem. The other species in the wild sand space zone had only reverence and fear for the nature race and the oracle race, but never hatred. That was the difference between Long Yu and the giants. 10 breaths. I've already tried to suppress the demigod of the nature clan for 2 breaths. There are only 8 breaths left. It's a bit difficult to make him surrender, but it's not impossible. For these 2 most powerful beings of the wild sandstar region, what they are most afraid of is not their own lives, but the survival and continuation of the entire race of nature and the race of oracles. In that case, we can start from this aspect. Little Sue, tell them that as long as they agree to my 3 conditions, I'll leave the wild sand galaxy immediately. Otherwise, I'll destroy the entire nature clan and the oracle clan. Long Yu calmly asked the Nether Dragonblade. His divine will could communicate with the outsiders, which was something Long Yu didn't have. However, Little Sue and Long Yu could communicate telepathically, so Little Sue's communication with the outsiders was equivalent to Long Yu communicating with the outsiders. They asked which 3 conditions. Very soon, the Nether Dragonblade received an answer. Clearly, the combat power that Long Yu had just displayed had shocked the remaining 2 powerhouses of the wild sandstar field. If Long Yu wanted to leave this place and attack the other cultivation planets of the Natural Clan and the Divine Envoy Clan, then it was obvious that it would cause immeasurable losses to the two clans. First, hand over the training resources that I need. 10 ultimate creations, 100 transcendent quality creations, 2,000 first-grade heavenly crystal creations. Second, the two of them must listen to my orders and become my servants in 3 years. Third, give me all the quotas of the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan to enter the temples and miracles in the next 5 years. Long Yu put forward such 3 conditions directly. Their answer was obvious. The Silver Tree demigod of the Nature Clan and the Golden demigod of the Oracle Clan launched another attack at Long Yu without any hesitation. Long Yu's conditions were too excessive. Both sides had yet to determine a victor and a loser. Yet, Long Yu had already proposed such conditions for the victor. Naturally, they could not agree to it. However, seeing that, Long Yu snorted and raised his hand. The primordial bridge of rain was established, and he stepped on it. The next moment, he appeared dozens of domains away. This was still the territory of the Nature Clan. Without hesitation, he directly gathered 10 ninth Nether Hunters on one of the training planets and began to train them. If the other party did not agree to this condition, then Long Yu would continue to cause damage to the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan until they agreed. Seeing that Long Yu stepped on the bridge of rain and left, the demigod of the Oracle Clan suddenly remembered that this guy had such a forbidden technique of the ancient gods that could easily pass through dozens of domains. Even they could not catch up to him. Under such circumstances, if this kid wanted to escape or cause damage in the territory of the two races, they could not stop him at all. Besides, even if it was a head-on battle, this kid did not lose at all. The Silver demigod of the Nature Clan was immediately infuriated when he learned that 2 training planets had been destroyed and a large number of training resources had been taken by Long Yu. However, he could not get away to stop Long Yu yet, because the strongest demigod of the Oracle Clan was still here. If the Silver demigod of the Nature Clan left, the other demigods of the Nature Clan would suffer and would definitely be killed by the Oracle Clan. Very soon, news came from the territory of the Oracle Clan that Long Yu had destroyed 3 training planets. No one in the entire Oracle Clan could stop him at all. The 2 demigod giants of the Wild Sandstar Zone were somewhat trembling at this moment. They observed each other. Were the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan really going to work together now? Let's work together. If we agree to his conditions, we will also have to work under his command. Instead of that, why don't we try and see if we can kill him? The 2 parties reached an agreement, and then directly built a space-time tunnel in the direction of where Long Yu was. However, before they stepped into the space-time tunnel, they found that the space-time tunnel actually began to collapse from the inside. The power of the 5 elements in the entire space-time tunnel condensed into a storm, and then the entire space-time tunnel began to disintegrate. This made them not dare to step in casually, because as strong as they were, once they encountered the disintegration of the space-time tunnel in the space-time tunnel, they would be lost in the power of the 5 elements for a very long time. And now, what they lacked the most was time. They needed to buy time to stop Long Yu from destroying the territory of the 2 races. But unfortunately, no matter how they created the space-time tunnel, it would be disintegrated the moment it was created. This was the first time they had encountered such a situation. They guessed that Long Yu must have done something on the other side of the space-time tunnel. But in this case, wouldn't he be unable to destroy the cultivation planets in the territory of the 2 races? Soon, news came that 2 more cultivation planets in the territory of the oracles had been destroyed. Therefore, the 2 demigod giants of the alien races knew that Long Yu could completely destroy those cultivation planets without doing anything himself. He could rely on the hunters of the netherworld. Of course, the 2 giants did not know that those were the hunters of the netherworld, created by Long Yu's techniques. They only thought that they were demigod creatures raised by Long Yu. As a result, they were a little anxious. Obviously, if this went on, they would not be able to outlast Long Yu at all, because the 2 races were suffering losses every moment. Even though Long Yu was no longer in the territory of the natural race, the natural race was still being attacked by the hunters of the netherworld, and Long Yu did not suffer any losses. Thus, they carefully considered the three conditions and realized that they were still too much. Just the first condition alone would require a huge amount of cultivation resources. Even if the nature tribe and the oracle tribe were to fork out such a huge amount of cultivation resources, it would still be a huge blow to them. The second condition, 3 years as a follower, was not a big deal. It was just 3 years, and for the two giants, it was nothing at all. The third condition, 5 years to enter the temples and miracles, had a great impact. Once this was handed over, it could be said that the natural race and the oracles would not make much progress in the next 5 years, and their development would stagnate. This was also a condition that was difficult for them to accept. After reconsidering the three conditions, the two giants still decided to fight Long Yu to the death. They would not compromise with this alien race no matter what. But as time went by, they became suspicious again. After persevering, they finally passed through the space-time tunnel and went to the territory of the oracles, the place where Long Yu had caused destruction. However, when they arrived, they found that Long Yu had already left. Because of this, the space-time tunnel that they had created did not continue to decompose. Immediately after, bad news came from the territory of the natural race in less than 3 days. Both the Nature Clan and the Divine Emissary Clan had lost at least 10 cultivation planets. These 10 cultivation planets were considered to be well developed in the territories of the two clans, and there were plenty of cultivation resources on them. A total of 20 cultivation planets were completely destroyed by Long Yu's actions. The surface of the planets was scorched, and all living beings were killed. Only 2 hunters of the netherworld, whose power density was more than 40 times that of the netherworld, were still resting on the cultivation planet. Then, they were destroyed by the 2 giants of the alien race who rushed over later. However, this could not make up for their losses. Long Yu's 9 nether hunters were just a matter of throwing them down, and he himself would immediately leave. Not long after, the entire cultivation planet would be destroyed by the 2 9 nether hunters, and then these 2 fellows would have nothing to do, so they would just stay where they were and rest until they were found and killed. 7 days later, the number of cultivation planets that had been destroyed reached 100. Most importantly, the 2 giants could not do anything to Long Yu. The space-time tunnel would decompose, and they would not be able to arrive at the scene immediately. More importantly, even if they arrived, they would not be able to do anything to Long Yu. Long Yu's 9 Hell Tablet had already suppressed them, and they knew that Long Yu would not lose to them in a head-on battle. Now, they just had to make them surrender and agree to the 3 conditions, so they were using this kind of guerrilla warfare. Therefore, they could only consider the 3 conditions again. Chapter 17:13. A month after Long Yu came out of the Voidwood Temple, the only 2 demigods left from the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan, who had more than 80 times the power density, finally signed an agreement with him and agreed to the 3 conditions. There were 10 ultimate creations, and the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan each offered 10 of them. Creations of such a level could not only be used to accelerate the growth of new demigods, but also be absorbed by demigod experts to speed up their own training. Basically, one ultimate creation could shorten the training time by 2 years. However, for Long Yu and the rest of them, it was too wasteful to use the ultimate creation to speed up their training when the time flow was slowed down. There were still many people in the galaxy who hadn't stepped into the demigod level, and the 20 ultimate creation could help more people step into the demigod level. Secondly, the 2 alien demigod giants would follow Long Yu in the next 3 years. This period would undoubtedly be very dangerous for Long Yu, but the condition was that the other party entered Long Yu's small world. In this way, Long Yu wouldn't be afraid of any damage from the other party, because in Long Yu's small world, Long Yu's own strength would be more than 100 times stronger. In the outside world, Long Yu wasn't afraid of the 2 alien demigod giants, let alone in his small world, where he could crush them easily. Of course, there were conditions for them to enter Long Yu's small world. They wouldn't give their lives to Long Yu so easily. That was to let two demigods on Long Yu's side enter their small worlds. In the end, Lu Guanming and Ling Han, Long Yu's two good friends from the Jintian clan, offered to enter the two alien demigod giants' small worlds after they became new demigods with the ultimate creation items. In such a way, both parties would be more secure and the other party could be obedient. In the next 3 years, the two guys would stay in Long Yu's small world. If they were useful, Long Yu could release them at any time. Long Yu believed that as long as he continued his training, he would be stronger than the two giants. In such a way, he wouldn't have to worry that he would be restrained by them after he released them. The third condition was the quota to enter all the temples and miracles in the territory of the two powerful races in the next 5 years. According to Long Yu's calculation, for temples and 2 miracles would be opened in the next 5 years, which meant that there would be 36 chances to enter the temples. As for the 2 miracles, they should be able to create at least 5 or 6 new demigods. The Nature Clan, the Oracle Clan, and the other alien creatures in the Wild Sand Space Zone didn't expect that the 2 demigod giants would surrender to Long Yu. Long Yu's methods were so despicable that they had to surrender. There were 100 transcendent grade creation items and 2,000 heavenly crystal grade creation items. The 2 races added together would double the amount. To Long Yu, this was an extremely important cultivation resource. He directly swallowed and absorbed half of them, increasing the density of the Death Stream God power to 50 times. In such a way, his combat ability in his normal state was increased again. The time that I can use the 9 Hell Prison Steel to increase the death power seems to be related to the density of the death power and my own strength. It seems that it's time to continue training. Just like that, Long Yu began training in the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan. He had no other goals in the Wild Sand Space Zone, but he was not in a hurry to go back. After all, he could enter the temples and miracles at any time in the next 5 years. He couldn't waste it. He didn't really need it, but the other new demigods in the galaxy did. It was a pity that he didn't train in this place for too long. He built an area that slowed down the flow of time. About half a year had passed in the outside world, and he and the other new demigods had been training for almost 8 years. They all made a lot of progress. Among them, Yi Ziwei's cultivation was nearing the end. The level of her cultivation secret technique was not very high. Although the secret technique's effects were very good and could continuously increase her cultivation speed, the secret technique could only allow her to cultivate to 59 times the density of her strength. Right now, the density of her strength had already reached 56 times, the same level as before Long Yu started cultivating. She was still 3 rounds away, and she would be able to perfectly cultivate the secret method she was currently cultivating. By then, she would be able to enter the temple again to improve in other aspects and improve her secret method to a higher level so that she could train to a higher level. As for Long Yu, in the past half a year, he had only reached the 5th level of the 6th round with the 4th level of the Dark 9 extremities. His strength was exactly 60 times the density of his strength. He was planning to keep training until his strength density reached 70 or 80 times, but he didn't manage to do it because a messenger from the Langia Space Zone came. The messenger was a powerful demigod of the 6-Wing clan with a strength density of more than 70 times. He came to deliver a message. The space barrier at the border of the Langia Space Zone was abnormal, and it was getting more and more unstable. It seemed that some powerful being was going to break through the barrier. He hoped that the Wild Sand Space Zone could send some experts to make preparations together. The messenger of the 6-Wing clan from the Langia Space Zone was sent by Long Yu. He was a demigod of the Nature Clan with a strength density of 90 times. He immediately said that he would go there with another expert with a strength density of 90 times. Therefore, the messenger of the 6-Wing clan decided to wait and go back to the Langia Space Zone with them. The messenger of the 6-Wing clan couldn't be blamed for taking half a year to deliver the news to them. After all, the distance between the star fields was simply too great. After all, not everyone was like Long Yu, who possessed the immemorial Bridge of Rain. Something abnormal has happened to the space barrier. Long Yu was a bit surprised to receive the message. It seemed that the situation in the Langia Space Zone wasn't very good. In that case, let's forget about the temples and the miraculous sights. Let's go back to the Langus Space Zone. There are temples and miraculous sights in the Langus Space Zone anyway. We could just choose a few that are about to open and go in. We don't have to worry about the other alien races. With Long Yu's current strength, he basically didn't have to be afraid of anyone after returning to the Langus Space Zone. Even the strongest demigod of the Six-Winged Clan, one of the 3 strongest clans, might not be a match for Long Yu in a one-on-one fight with Long Yu. If they had help, Long Yu still had the 2 giants of the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan on his side. During the half a year in Long Yu's small world, the 2 giants clearly felt the effect of slowing down the flow of time. They knew that Long Yu had cultivated for 7 to 8 years in the past half a year. They immediately knew that the current Long Yu was much stronger than before and that he wasn't someone that they could fight against. Although they had ruled the wild sand space zone for a long time, they had to lower their heads in the face of a stronger existence. This kind of thing was a common thing in ancient times. It was just that it had become less common these days. In other words, the 2 demigod giants of the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan were basically very obedient now. In the 2.5 years that they had agreed on, the 2 demigod giants were equivalent to Long Yu's subordinates. If they disobeyed, they wouldn't be able to bear the consequences of Long Yu's wrath. For them, their greatest hope was to see the development of their race and the emergence of more experts. If they offended Long Yu, the situation would be very bad very soon. Long Yu appeared in front of the Six-Winged Clan with the 2 demigod giants of the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan. When he appeared, the Six-Winged Clan was immediately dumbfounded. It had never thought that it would see a human from the Langus Space Zone and the Wild Sand Space Zone. Moreover, although this human strength density was only 60 times, he seemed to be the demigod giant that controlled the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan. What was going on? Moreover, this human seemed a little familiar. The demigod of the Six-Winged Clan soon remembered that a human had once caused a big event in the territory of the Six-Winged Clan. He killed all the demigods of the Six-Winged Clan who were about to enter a divine temple, and took their place and stepped into the divine temple. That was 10 years ago. Since then, the Six-Winged Clan had never found any trace of that human. They thought that the human had been in the divine temple until he died, but they didn't expect that guy to come to the wild sand space zone. The demigod of the Six-Winged Clan couldn't have been more astonished. More importantly, the demigods of the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan were existences with a strength density of 90 times. How could they be controlled by such a human brat? Moreover, when the demigod of the Six-Winged Clan, the Machine Clan, and the Sword Clan seemed to be bullying the human race and the demon race, the demigod of the Six-Winged Clan shivered. If this brat went back and saw that scene, wouldn't it be terrible? More importantly, the demigod of the Six-Winged Clan had sensed the terrifying power on the other side of the void barrier. If they didn't unite now, the 3 space zones would probably be doomed. Let's explain the situation first. Although the territories of the Human Clan and the Demon Clan have suffered some damage, this is normal. There aren't many cultivation planets that have been destroyed. After all, they've made preparations to take refuge in advance. The demigod of the Six-Winged Clan told the general situation to Long Yu. If it weren't for the fact that the demigod giants of the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan were very obedient to Long Yu, the demigod of the Six-Winged Clan wouldn't have taken Long Yu seriously at all. Given the current situation, the demigod of the Six-Winged Clan had to consider if Long Yu had any special means or strength. He had to be on guard. It doesn't matter. Follow me back first. When Long Yu heard that the Sword Clan, the Machine Clan, and the Six-Winged Clan were wreaking havoc in the territory of the human race and the demon race, a hint of killing intent appeared in his eyes. However, he didn't show it. Instead, he casually waved his hand and led everyone to construct the primordial rain bridge. Return to the Langus Space Zone. Chapter 1714. The primordial rain bridge continued to be built. Long Yu took the demigod of the Six-Winged Clan and the 2 demigods of the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan to the Langus Space Zone. He didn't leave the others in the Wild Sand Space Zone, just in case. Although Jitao was there, which was equivalent to 80 times the strength density, it shouldn't be a problem for her to guard the wild sand space zone. But that was only if there were no accidents. To make sure that nothing went wrong, Long Yu took everyone with him. As a result, there were basically no experts in the wild sand space zone now. The strongest among them were only a few demigods of the nature race and the oracle race, whose strength density was 70 times that of the god race. A large number of training resources had been taken away by Long Yu, causing the entire wild sandstar zone to be in a state of depression. Naturally, Long Yu didn't have time to care about that. What he was worried about was the territory of the human clan and the demon clan. Although the Six-Wing clan and the other two clans were only going to the edge of the Langia space zone to check the situation of the void barrier, Long Yu would definitely take back the losses that the human clan and the demon clan had suffered. In that case, let's find the temples and the miracles in the territory of the three clans. Long Yu didn't even think about it and directly made such a decision. Besides, Long Yu wouldn't let the two giants of the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan out of the small world before the critical moment. Otherwise, if they joined hands with the three clans, Long Yu wouldn't feel good either. After all, the two of them weren't restricted by the ancient contract like the Bone Clan and the Lost Clan and had to listen to Long Yu's words. Before Long Yu had the decisive power to suppress them, he would deal with the two of them carefully. Then, Long Yu directly asked the demigod of the Six-Wing clan to tell him the locations of the temples and miracles that were about to be opened in the territory of the Sword Clan and the Mechanical Clan. The demigod of the Six-Wing clan didn't hide the information and told Long Yu everything he knew. For Long Yu, it was very easy to get such information. Even if the demigod didn't tell him, he could easily get it after he returned. But since this guy said it, it was even better. After all, for the demigod of the Six-Wing clan, telling the location of the temples in the territory of the Sword race and the Mechanical race had nothing to do with him, and it wouldn't hurt the interests of the Six-Wing clan. Also, he could trap his two competitors. So why not? However, he soon regretted it, because Long Yu's target wasn't just the Sword race and Automaton race, but all three races. Everyone should move a little faster in order to enter the Divine Hall this time. After all, we still have to hurry back to the territories of the humans and demons. Long Yu said to everyone in the galaxy. It was mainly because there were a lot of new demigods in the galaxy after the ultimate creations were obtained this time. The new demigods were basically sent to the temples to try to perceive suitable secret arts of training. Long Yu and the other people almost did not need the temples anymore. Long Yu, in particular, had all his techniques transformed into deified techniques. He even had 7 ancient god stripes, and even comprehended the divine power of death. Even if he entered the divine halls, he wouldn't get too many useful things. At most, he might get in touch with things about gods. However, those were just some information and were not of much use. If he wanted to obtain this kind of information, it would be better to ask the two big shots of the Nature Clan and the Oracle Clan. They would know better. After thinking for a while, Long Yu asked the two big shots about the gods. Very soon, he got the answer. The answer to the question wasn't a secret in the Nature Clan and the Oracle's clan. It wasn't even a secret in the eyes of the alien demigods, whose power density was more than 80 times. With Long Yu's strength, he would find out very soon. There was no point in hiding it from him. As it turned out, neither the Nature Clan nor the Oracle's clan knew what gods were. But demigods were mainly divided into 3 levels. The weakest level was the regular demigods. This level didn't refer to the level of power density, but the level of control over divine power. Regular demigods didn't have the ability to control divine power, so they were just regular demigods. Such demigods accounted for 99% of the galaxy. The next level was the demigods who had inherited divine power. In the Eclipse Moon Ancient region, cultivators had a chance to inherit divine power. However, there was only one chance every time the Eclipse Moon Ancient region opened. Later, in the Divine Halls, demigods also had a chance to inherit divine power. The inherited divine power belonged to a certain ancient god. The divine power, after the inheritance, could be used to help one understand, but it wasn't allowed to be used. It was like the battle between the Nature Clan and the Oracle's clan. That demigod of the Oracle's clan activated the inherited divine power and was punished by the divine light of the void with divine hall. The inherited divine power couldn't be used. It could only be used to help a demigod understand their own divine power. The strongest level was the demigods who had their own divine power. For example, the gray tree demigod who was about to transform into a real god, but was erased by the light of God's prohibition, or Longyu right now. Generally speaking, demigods who reached 80 times the power density could all receive some kind of inherited divine power. Longyu's golden flame divine power was one of them. However, whether or not they could have their own divine power depended on their talent and luck. However, although there was such a division among demigods, it was actually not very meaningful because although comprehending one's own divine power was the only way to become a god, gods were existences that could not be touched at all. It was just like what Longyu had seen before. Once an existence that had come into contact with a level of gods appeared, the light of the divine restriction would immediately shoot out from the void and mercilessly kill the existence that had come into contact with the level of gods. This was the current situation of this world. Can't become a god. Longyu was also a bit surprised when he got the exact news. He didn't expect that the truth was not much different from what he had guessed. Nobody could become a god. He had understood divine power and cultivated to 100 times the power density, but he still couldn't become a god. Such a phenomenon had lasted for millions of years. This reminded Longyu of the Joyo Dragon Emperor. He thought of the creator of the Rain God Temple. However, since there are divine halls in this world, it means that there used to be gods. Where are those gods now? Longyu raised this question. Maybe they are hiding in the divine halls that they created and sealed themselves. Or maybe they have already been destroyed by the attack of God's prohibition. No one knows. However, someone in our race once reached the deepest part of a divine hall and felt the most primitive divine power, but it was in a state of confinement. It is very likely that a god sealed himself in it. So said the demigod of the silver, ancient tree of the nature race. Then the scene I saw in the eclipse moon ancient domain. Longyu began to think again. On the 6th and 7th floors of the eroding moon ancient domain, he saw a lot of experts who also inherited the divine power of golden flames. Those experts should be demigods of the 2nd level, and it was possible for them to become demigods of the 3rd level who had comprehended their own divine power. Since it was impossible to become a god in this world, why were the divine halls and miracles helping the demigods to improve? It can't be that they want us to cultivate to our deaths. There must be a purpose. In this way, the ultimate culprit is the only one, the God's prohibition light. Although I don't know where the God's prohibition light comes from, judging from the situation in the void with Divine Palace, the divine halls are fighting against the God's prohibition light. As long as the God's prohibition light is taken care of, this world will be able to give birth to new gods continuously, right? Longyu continued to ponder. The demigod of the Oracle clan, who was glowing with golden light, told Longyu another piece of information. Originally, if one cultivated their divine power to 100 times the density of their divine power, the power of time would naturally be born in their divine power, allowing them to control time. But now, no one could become a god, which meant that the power of time had been lost in this world for a long time. In other words, in the divine halls, people could not feel the passage of time. And one of the reasons why it's submitted to Longyu was because Longyu actually controlled a bit of the power of time. Although it came from a 9 Underworlds prison tablet, whether it was the 9 Underworld ball or any other methods, they all came from the inheritance of a 9 Underworlds prison tablet. However, this made the demigod of the Oracle clan feel hope. There should be many rumors regarding the 9 Serene prison tablet. However, we have long since forgotten about these rumors. There are no longer any records regarding these rumors. If we wish to know more, I'm afraid that we will have to search other places. These 3-star areas had all lost their vitality and were separated by the barrier of the void. In the past, there had been very powerful existences that had crossed through the barrier of the void, such as the Alliance of the Sufferers. He could still remember that in an even more ancient era, which was the era of the Dragon Emperor of the Nine Abyss, there was no barrier of the void. The birth of the foreign god clan in the Langustar area is also a suspicious point. I should go back and explore it. Long Yu kept all the questions in his heart. Then, he kept moving forward through the immemorial Rain Bridge and soon reached the Langustar area. He went back to check on the human clan and the monster clan first. He found that the situation was still good. There was no sign of the three top clans bullying the human clan and the monster clan. More importantly, the dangerous and horrifying air in the direction of the barrier of the void was getting more and more intense and clear. It attracted all the attention of the three top clans. On the other hand, since the Heavenly Dipper Space Zone was closer to the Wild Sand Space Zone, the demigods of some top clans were also on their way. Naturally, they were not as efficient as Long Yu. When the news that Long Yu had returned with 2 demigod giants of the Wild Sand Space Zone reached the ears of the experts of the 3 top clans, they even ordered that no one was allowed to cause trouble in the territory of the human clan or the monster clan. Long Yu, who was planning to fight for the relics in their temples, didn't bother to settle the score with them after seeing their goodwill. Long Yu's attention was also shifted to the barrier of the void. This is such a horrifying air. Long Yu came to the place where the demigod Gaudi had been watching. Sensing the horrifying air from far away, he felt that he was surrounded by death and that all his strength had fallen into a dead end. Chapter 17:15. Thump, 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 thump. Long Yu felt that his heart was beating much faster than usual, which was something that he hadn't felt for a long time. Far away, there was nothing but darkness. Long Yu had wondered what it would be like if he kept walking in this direction. According to the information he found, he would run into the void barrier, which was a barrier that was even more straightforward than the void barrier. It was impossible to reach the other side of the void barrier through it. But at this moment, a terrifying aura was coming from the void barrier. Such an aura had lasted for half a year. It's so strong that it doesn't feel like a living creature's aura. Is it some kind of natural power? Long Yu frowned. The 3 races seem to have built a special building in the void up ahead. They're discussing the void barrier in it. Human beings and demons aren't qualified to join them. But since you're back, Long Yu, you'll have a place in that place, won't you? Gaudi said somewhat helplessly. Well, Silver Tree, Gold Ambassador, come with me. Long Yu released the 2 giants of the nature race and the oracle race. After sensing the aura of the void barrier, he believed that nobody had the intention to fight against each other anymore, because it was a power that could destroy the 3 space zones. If they didn't unite, the 3 space zones would be destroyed, and no living creature could avoid it. No matter how much they hated each other before, they had to stand together at this moment. The destruction of the territories of human beings and demons was also caused by the demigods of the 3 races on their way. As a matter of fact, when they reached the edge of the Langu space zone and sensed the infinite air of death from the void barrier, they had no intention to attack human beings and demons at all. Infinite fear began to spread. It had been half a year, and the aura on the other side of the void barrier was even more horrifying than before. It seemed that something would break through the void barrier and spread to the space of the 3 space zones at any time. When the 2 demigod giants of the nature race and the oracle race, who Long Yu called Silver Tree and Gold Oracle, came out, they were completely caught in the same state as Long Yu. In fact, because their power density was higher, they could sense the threat of the terrifying aura coming from the other side of the void barrier more clearly than Long Yu. These 2, Flamboyant, looked at the 2 giants and was immediately petrified. 90 times the strength density? This was probably the strongest existence in this star field, right? What had Long Yu experienced in the past 10 years since he had left Langustar area? But no matter what, this situation meant that Long Yu now had a lot of say. In this way, it would be easier for him to fight for more survival opportunities for the human race and the monster race on such an occasion where all the races of the entire star domain were gathered. No matter what the situation on the other side of the void barrier was, the stronger Long Yu was, the more advantageous it would be for the human clan and the demon clan. In the void, a strange octagonal building was floating, rotating slowly in the pitch-black void. Many demigods from the powerful races of the Langiustar area were gathered in this building. In order to enter this building, one had to have at least 60 times the strength density. It was the command center that the machinery race, the sword race, and the six-winged race had built in the past half a year. When Long Yu came to this building with Silver Tree and Gold Oracle, he was welcomed by the alien races. After all, Silver Tree and Gold Oracle had come on behalf of the Wild Sand Space Zone, and Long Yu's appearance was within everybody's expectation. After all, they had received the news in advance. However, the sword race, the six-winged race, and the machinery race all felt sorry for Long Yu. Long Yu went to the lobby of the building. This was a space of nothingness. It was divided into many compartments like a beehive. Every expert could cultivate in one of the compartments and participate in the discussions of the crowd at the same time. Long Yu, Silver Tree, and Gold Oracle each picked a compartment in the beehive, sat down, and took a rest. Looking around, Long Yu found many familiar figures. Among them, the demigod of the six-winged race that was emitting golden light also had a strength density of 90 times. Long Yu had seen this guy in the last layer of the eroding moon ancient region. Although the six-winged race all looked the same in the eyes of humans, the strongest six-winged race in front of him still had some distinguishing features from its appearance. There was also the sword race and the machinery race. They each had a strength density of more than 90 times. Long Yu had seen them in the eroding moon ancient region. From the looks of it, some experts have indeed come this time. After all, we're facing the life and death of 3 star fields. Perhaps not long after, all the living beings in this starry sky will die out. Long Yu thought to himself. He first shared some of the conclusions of the discussion in this building. Legends of the Ruins of God. One of the conclusions caught Long Yu's attention. According to the information of his divine will, the machinery race had seen the legends about the ruins of God in some of the remaining materials left by the Alliance of the Sufferers. The so-called ruins of God was a terrifying place where even gods would be reduced to ashes. And the ruins of God was not a fixed place. It was an area that kept spreading. The reason why the Alliance of the Sufferers had evacuated from this space zone was that the ruins of God had spread to their headquarters, causing them to suffer a destructive blow. They recalled all the members of the Alliance of the Sufferers who were outside. Since then, there had been no news about the Alliance of the Sufferers. No one knew the specific information about the ruins of God. In the Langia space zone, only the machinery race had found some information about the ruins of God. From there, they knew that the ruins of God was an extremely terrifying existence. If the ruins of God had also spread to this part of the universe where they were now, they would not be able to resist it at all. I suggest that all the races send at least 3 representatives to participate in this discussion after collecting information. Long Yu made a suggestion directly. It was more like an order than a suggestion, because the moment he proposed it, the Silver Tree and the Gold Oracle also directly agreed. What they lacked now was not combat ability, but information about the ruins of God. Maybe there were still some records about the ruins of God in other races? If he had known this, Long Yu would have brought the demigods of the other minor races in the Wild Sand Space Zone. But it was not too late now. It was not easy to gather all the demigods of the other races. It would take a lot of time. And the power on the other side of the barrier of the void, while extremely terrifying, had not reached its peak yet. That was still something that everyone could feel. That was why they had time to discuss, guess possibilities, and formulate countermeasures here. Most of the demigods present felt that Long Yu's words made sense. Although some of the veteran demigods objected, they couldn't change the crowd's mind. Eventually, a team was formed to invite the demigods of the minor races to participate in the meeting. Of course, the key was to bring the information about the ruins of God or other useful rumors. Long Yu also left this place. He directly activated the primordial bridge of rain and returned to the Wild Sand Space Zone, planning to bring a batch of the demigods of the minor races over. With their wisdom, it was possible that they could get some useful information. Activating the primordial bridge of rain with all his strength, it was very easy for him to cross space zones. Because of his eagerness, Long Yu finally comprehended the primordial bridge of rain to a higher level. After it was established, he could go to places 30 zones away at a speed 10 times faster. A month later, Long Yu brought 100 alien demigods of the wild sand space zone to the octagonal building at the edge of the Langia space zone. At this moment, the representatives of all the races in the Langia space zone and the Heavenly Dipper space zone had arrived too. Humans and demons each had 3 demigods. However, for the minor races such as humans and demons, 3 demigods could only have 1 beehive grid. When participating in a discussion, 1 beehive grid equaled 1 vote. When certain decisions were made, it was decided by the votes. It seems that the ancestors of our race foresaw such a situation before. Such a telepathic thought came from an inconspicuous corner, attracting the attention of all the demigods present. Huh, an alien race? Long Yu took a look, only to discover that the 2 demigods of the Ice God clan were talking at the same time, and the demigod of the Desolate God clan was also communicating telepathically. It seemed that they had similar files. When the ruins of God come, awaken my remaining divine body and meld it with the sacred items of all races. This was left by the ancestors of our race. Awaken the divine body of our ancestors with the sacred items of all races, and it may be able to resist. The demigod of the Ice God clan sent out telepathic thoughts while looking in the direction of Long Yu and the human race. Because the sacred item of the Ice God clan was not in their own hands, but in the hands of the human race and the successor of the Joyo Dragon Emperor. Is that so? Long Yu narrowed his eyes. When the ruins of God come, awaken the remaining divine body. That was what the ancestors of the alien races said. If Long Yu remembered correctly, the origin of the alien races was related to the gods. Could it be that the divine body of the gods still existed? However, 6 sacred items were needed to awaken it. Originally, there were 12 races among the alien races, but now there are only 6. However, there should be 12 sacred items among the alien races, right? Long Yu asked with telepathic thoughts. There are 6 more sacred items. Since the 6 races were destroyed, they have returned to the divine body of the ancestors, so only 6 sacred items are needed. The demigod of the Ice God clan said. Then let's go and take a look. Before that, summarize the information about the ruins of God. All the demigods who have information about the ruins of God make their information public. The strongest demigod of the 6-winged clan raised his hand and made a decision. Chapter 17:16. In the core area of the territory of the Outer God clan, the demigod experts from many races in the 3-star zones gathered together, ready to watch the Outer God clan awaken the remaining divine body of their ancestor with the 6 holy items. However, Long Yu did not come over. Instead, he went to explore the Barrier of the Void. The Barrier of the Void was tens of thousands of star zones away from the Langia star zone. Except for Long Yu's ancient rain bridge, there was no other way to get close to the Barrier of the Void in a short time. Therefore, the only way to explore the situation over there was to Long Yu. As for the defense barrier of the Outer God clan, the Saint Emperor and the others were also watching, so Long Yu could immediately know the situation. As Long Yu got closer and closer to the Barrier of the Void, he felt more and more the terrifying aura coming from the other side of the barrier. It even made his heart beat faster and faster. Even his devil dust heart was trembling. It was a terrifying power that could destroy everything of Long Yu in an instant, including his devil dust heart. Although he had not touched it yet, even if he could only feel it from afar, he was already sure of this. However, Long Yu was still approaching the Barrier of the Void. He wanted to see what was going on over there. Since the ruins of God were going to spread, why hadn't it started to spread yet? Was it blocked by the Barrier of the Void? Soon, Long Yu came to a place less than 10 star zones away from the Barrier of the Void. This is the Barrier of the Void. Long Yu looked over. In such a situation, no perception was as effective as the naked eye. Even the perception of the soul, sense, could not feel what the Barrier of the Void was like 10 star zones away. However, With the naked eye, he could see that there was a thick black fog in the sky ahead. This black fog was constantly churning and rolling, like an ocean of black fog, forming a barrier that spanned across the void. It covered the sky and the earth. The space between the sky and the earth was completely blocked by this barrier of the void. The Langia star zone, the Wild Sand star zone, and the Heavenly Dipper star zone were completely surrounded by such a barrier of the void. The cultivators in them could not break through the barrier of the void and go to other places. I wonder how the Alliance of Sufferers broke through the barrier of the void. Longyu got even closer and gave it a try. He discovered that even the extension of the immemorial Bridge of Rain would be directly blocked by the barrier of nothingness. He would either crash head first into that layer of black mist and completely lose himself, or he would be unable to pass through it. It could be seen that this was a true barrier that blocked everything. He also wanted to take a closer look and feel the aura of the ruins of God coming from the other side of the void barrier. But at this moment, he seemed to hear a kacha sound. This is Longyu's expression changed. It was also at this time that he saw the most magnificent scene in history. He saw that above the incomparably dense black fog of the void barrier, an opening had suddenly appeared. Not just one hole, but many holes appeared on the black fog of the void barrier. Crack, crack, crack. From the hole closest to him, an incomparable darkness spread out from the crack of the void barrier. The ruins of God broke through. Longyu subconsciously wanted to turn around and escape, but at this moment, the endless darkness that extended out from the crack covered Longyu in one fell swoop. The ruins of God had been brewing on the other side of the void barrier for too long. Once it broke through, it would be an earth-shattering power. Its speed was extremely fast. Even though Longyu was still several domains away from the void barrier, he was still instantly enveloped by it and pulled into the boundless darkness. If one were to watch from a distance, they would see that the entire world seemed to shatter. The void barrier was completely broken through by the ruins of God, and endless darkness swept over. The ruins of God broke through the void barrier and finally began to move in the direction of the Langia star region. Longyu, the Saint Emperor, who was connected to Longyu at all times, was at the core of the Outer God race's territory. She was preparing to see the other party use the holy artifact to awaken the ancestor's remnant body. But at this time, she felt Longyu's aura suddenly disappear. Before the aura disappeared, what Longyu saw was also displayed in the Saint Emperor's mind. The ruins of God has broken through. Get ready. The Saint Emperor immediately reminded. Although she was very worried about Longyu, she knew that the most important thing was not this. She had to first see if the thing of the Outer God race was reliable. If it was not, the entire Langia star region would soon be swallowed by the ruins of God, and no one would be able to survive. After receiving the message from the Saint Emperor, the demigods of the various races present also changed their minds. They didn't need to pay too much attention to feel that the aura of death from the other side of the void barrier had suddenly become several times denser, as if they were closer to death. Although they couldn't see the specific situation over there, they were afraid that the ruins of God had really broken through and was spreading over here. Hurry! All the demigods of the various races began to urge the Outer God race. The Ice God race, the Desolate God race, the Earth God race, the Winged God race, the Fire God race, and the Wood God race. The remaining 6 Outer God races each held their race's holy item, and then stepped into a temple at the core of the Outer God race's territory. This temple was usually not open at all. It was a dead temple, so no one paid attention to it. But now, it had become the hope of all the races in these 3-star regions. As the 6 Outer God race demigods stepped into the temple with their holy items, it didn't take long for the aura of death to begin to grow denser and denser from the distant horizon. The void was originally pitch black, but it also contained the divine text of space and some of the power of the 5 elements, so there was still some light in the vision of some races. But now, the void in the direction of the void barrier had become pitch black. It was complete darkness, a darkness where nothing existed. If one was sucked into it, only death would await them. Both their physical body and soul would be crushed into powder and turned into nothingness. But at this moment, the darkness was spreading at an unimaginable speed. Very soon, it would cover the entire Langia space zone and devour the entire Langia space zone, turning everything into nothingness. At this moment, some alien demigods began to make moves. I'm leaving now. A demigod of the illusion butterfly race from the Heavenly Dipper space zone, whose power density was more than 70 times, did not dare to stay under such circumstances. He was ready to return to the Heavenly Dipper space zone as quickly as possible and lead all the creatures of the illusion butterfly race to escape. You can't save your people even if you leave now. You might as well stay and figure out a way together. Otherwise, the 3 space zones will be devoured by the ruins of God sooner or later. Silver Tree sent a telepathic thought. He was quite steady. It was a pity that not everybody was as steady as him. There weren't many powerful races in the Heavenly Dipper space zone, but there were 8 middle-level races whose strength was similar. The Illusion Butterfly race was one of them. Right now, the demigod of the Illusion Butterfly race simply ignored Silver Tree's telepathic thought and disappeared in front of everybody by activating the divine text of space. There were many other races who did the same thing as the demigod of the Illusion Butterfly race. It was impossible to stop them. Originally, the relationship between the major races was mostly hostile. Now, it was already very rare for them to be able to calmly gather together to discuss the problem of the ruins of God. When the ruins of God really came, and they had yet to come up with a solution, it was basically impossible for such a group to remain united. Very soon, almost half of the demigods on the field had left. The remaining half were mostly from the Langia space zone. After all, the Langia space zone was the first to be affected. They had nowhere to run, even if they wanted to. They could only stay for now and observe the situation with the other demigods. At least, Silver Tree and Gold Ambassador, the 2 giants from the Wild Sand Space Zone, hadn't left yet. When almost half of the demigods on the field had left, the aura of the ruins of God had almost arrived right in front of them. What's the situation with Longyu right now? Red Oriole asked the Saint Emperor anxiously. I don't know. I can't sense his aura, but I don't think he's dead. I've never felt this before. He must be in a special state. The Saint Emperor frowned slightly and replied, The ruins of God are coming. What we should be thinking about now is ourselves. Red Oriole, don't act rashly later. Longyu is Longyu, and you are you. Do you understand? He might be able to survive in the ruins of God, but you can't. Consort, you warned Red Oriole. Red Oriole nodded with difficulty. Her pretty face was filled with worry. She looked at the darkness of the ruins of God that was rapidly sweeping over from afar. Her heart was filled with Longyu's shadow. Is it too late? Gold Ambassador's oppressive telepathic thoughts spread out. No, it's just in time. The strongest demigod of the 6-winged race flapped its golden wings. At the same time, an extremely powerful aura suddenly erupted from the dead divine temple in front of them. This aura contained 12 different kinds of energy and showed 12 different colors. The 12 different colors of energy suddenly gathered outside the divine temple and formed a body that seemed to be incomplete. This is a god, the power of a true god. The demigods of the races that had 8 or 10 times the power density exclaimed. Moreover, it's a veteran god. A new god can't compare to it. This kind of power. The Silver Tree remembered the great ancient tree that had been killed by the forbidden light of God in the territory of the nature race not long ago, because it had transformed into a god. Even though the gray ancient tree had cultivated its cyan and purple lightning divine power to 100 times the power density, it was still far inferior to the power of the god that was surging out of the divine temple. A god is hidden in the divine temple. Such a thought emerged in everyone's mind. The 12 colors of light spread out in the field. The body of a god that seemed to be incomplete appeared above the divine temple. At the same time, a thought of the god was transmitted into the minds of all the demigods present. The ruins of God have arrived. My incomplete body can protect you for 1 year. If the recovery plan is not activated within 1 year, this star zone will be destroyed. 1 year was equivalent to 1 year. Even though it was the sole consciousness of the ancient god, everybody could understand it. They had to start the recovery plan within 1 year to save the Langya star area, the Big Dipper star area, and the Wild Sand star area. Otherwise, these 3-star areas would be destroyed. But what was the recovery plan? None of the living beings present knew. But what they didn't expect was that the incomplete body of the god in front of them was not a shadow or an illusion, but a real god. It was not a thought left by a god. It was the recovery of a god. The forbidden light of God has appeared. In the distant sky, from another direction of the ruins of God, 5 rays of the forbidden light of God suddenly shot out of the void and shot straight toward the incomplete body of the god. Everyone present stared nervously at the divine prohibition light. Only a few comparatively stronger demigods knew about the divine prohibition light. They knew that it could be said to be the strongest force in the world, and it could stop anyone from becoming a god. It was even to the extent that just a single ray of it was enough to annihilate everyone present. But now, 5 rays of the forbidden light of God had appeared in the sky. The target of the forbidden light of God was the incomplete god that had been awakened. Huff, huff, you underestimate my incomplete body. It's just 5 rays of the forbidden light of God. Retreat. The incomplete God spirit, which was emitting 12 different colors of light and had an indistinguishable body, sent out a solemn divine thought. Then 12 streams of divine power burst out and condensed into 5 beams of divine light, which shot out to deal with the divine forbidden light. In the next moment, the divine lights from both sides rumbled as they collided with each other, and then they exploded into pieces. Moreover, even space itself was blasted into pieces. 5 void vortexes appeared in the starry sky and devoured everything nearby. However, the recovered god's incomplete body easily blocked the 5 rays of the forbidden light of God. Although it was only an incomplete body of a god, it was still extremely powerful. This was the ancestor of the foreign god tribe, a real god. The incomplete god that was enveloped in 12 different colors glanced at the demigods of the other races below and then moved toward the ruins of God. His incomplete body actually split up completely at this moment. 12 light screens of different colors spread across the sky and earth. The ancestor sacrificed himself. The ancestor sacrificed himself. The demigods of the ice god tribe, the desolate god tribe, and the other foreign god tribe walked out of the temple and immediately burst into tears. Their sorrowful thoughts were transmitted to the minds of all the demigods present. The incomplete body of the god turned into 12 light screens and completely blocked the outside of the Langistar zone. Just like the original barrier of the void, it covered the entire sky and replaced the barrier of the void, trying to block the ruins of God outside. 1 year. Even if a god sacrificed himself, he could only block the ruins of God for 1 year. What's the recovery plan? No matter what, let's organize a retreat first. The Langistar zone is too close to the ruins of God. Let's retreat all the living beings in the Langistar zone to the Wild Sand Star zone. The Silver Tree and the God Ambassador Gene made a decision at the same time. Just now, their hearts were palpitating because they sensed the killing intent in the divine consciousness of the foreign god tribe. It seemed that the god had thought of killing all the beings that didn't belong to the foreign god tribe, but in the end, he didn't do it. This made the Silver Tree and the God Ambassador Gene realize something. Even the gods had given up on racial hatred, not to mention the demigods like them. The chance of survival right now was fought for by the ancestors of the foreign god tribe. Maybe there were gods in the temples of other races watching the scene in front of them. For now, it was best to ensure the survival of all the races first. In that way, the chances of survival for everyone in the future would be greater. The enormous race migration plan was started under the brewing of the Silver Tree, the God Ambassador Gene, the Six-Wing Clan, and other powerful demigods. Because of the experts like Ji Tao, whose strength density was more than 80 times, the human race and the demon race had a certain status and wouldn't be bullied. 2 months after the migration plan started, the Saint Emperor suddenly summoned all the demigods of the human race and the demon race. There's news about Long Yu. Red Oriole cried tears of joy. When the barrier of the void was broken and the ruins of God spread over, Long Yu was directly enveloped in it. However, he didn't die just like that. This was because at the critical moment, the 9 Hell Steel appeared and protected him by his side, bringing him to wander in the ruins of God. During this period, Long Yu discovered that even the 9 Hell Steel had begun to crack. It could be seen how terrifying the ruins of God were. When wandering in the ruins of God, time had no meaning at all. It was even more illusory than when he was in the temple. This was because the ruins of God were all nothingness. Even if a god entered the ruins of God, there would only be death. This was a quiet area of nothingness. There was nothing. Nothing existed. If it wasn't for the 9 Hell Steel protecting Long Yu, he would have turned into nothingness the moment he entered. Not to mention the heart of devil dust. Even 100 hearts of devil dust wouldn't be able to save him. However, even the 9 Hell Steel couldn't resist the corrosion of nothingness in the ruins of God. It began to show signs of cracking, which made Long Yu's heart ache. However, there was nothing he could do in the current situation. The only thing he could do was to continuously cultivate while he was drifting in the 9 Hell Steel. At this time, there was someone accompanying him, and that was Yi Wei. The other demigods of the human race did not stay with Long Yu, but only Yi Wei, because she was almost able to perfect her cultivation method, had been cultivating in Long Yu's small world, in the area where the flow of time slowed down. Right now, only Long Yu and Yi Wei were left, floating in the midst of this despairing ruins of God. There was nothing in the ruins of God, only nothingness. No one knew where the end was, and whether they would continue to drift like this until the 9 Hell Steel was completely corroded, and then everything would turn into nothingness. Long Yu could only continue to cultivate. Even when he was cultivating the 9 extremes of the netherworld, Long Yu was trying to comprehend the nothingness contained in the ruins of God. This nothingness was not a kind of power, but the feeling that nothing existed. Long Yu did not know if he could comprehend this feeling and use it for his own power, but since he had nothing else to do, he might as well give it a try. The 9 extremes of the netherworld continued to improve from the 6th round to the 7th round, the 8th round, and even the 9th round began to cultivate. This allowed Long Yu's power density to increase by 90 times. He didn't know how much time had passed. He only knew that he had been cultivating for over 100 years. Only then could he have such cultivation achievements. He also knew that his lifespan had been reduced by over 100 years. As for Yi Wei, she also continued to cultivate in his small world. Even in such a desperate situation, she did not give up. Although she did not have a divine hall to improve her secret cultivation method, she forcefully relied on her talent and combined it with some special comprehension she had in the ruins of God to improve her secret cultivation method. When Long Yu's power density reached 90 times, her power density finally reached 80 times. If she was in the original Langus star area, she would have been able to dominate the star area, or at least become a giant in the star area. But now, they were drifting in the void of the ruins of God. Even the surface of the 9 Hell Steel had countless old cracks, as if countless years had passed. He did not know how long the 9 Hell Steel could last. Suddenly, Long Yu saw a flash of light in front of him. As if an endless amount of time had passed, the cracks on the surface of the 9 Hell tablet recovered in an instant and became unscathed. "We're out. We've left the ruins of God." Long Yu was immediately surprised, and Yi Wei was also surprised. In such a desperate situation, they did not expect that the 9 Hell Steel could still take them out of the ruins of God. It was amazing. As far as the eye could see, what appeared in front of Long Yu was a bright scene. The stars here are so dazzling. Long Yu immediately felt that this was a place similar to Langus star area. Behind him was a thick black fog and the void barrier. In front of him was an extremely bright star area. In this star area, there seemed to be some other kinds of creatures, which made people feel that it was full of vitality. However, at this time, Long Yu felt several extremely terrifying forces chasing him from behind. Divine forbidden light, Easy Wei said in a low voice. Long Yu was shocked and immediately turned around. Sure enough, he saw 7 divine, forbidden light surging out from the thick black fog of the void barrier. Their target was him, or rather, the 9 hell steel behind him. After the 9 hell steel had left the ruins of God, it had used the power of time to completely repair the cracks on its surface. Moreover, it had condensed Long Yu and Yi Ziwei's experiences into a short period of time. In other words, 2 months. At this time, Long Yu could already communicate with the Holy Emperor. Therefore, he knew that only 2 months had passed in the outside world. However, all of this was because the 9 hell steel had used the power of time. Otherwise, hundreds of years would have passed. However, because of this, the appearance of the power of time had attracted the attack of the divine forbidden light. After all, the power of time represented the real God. The ancestor of the outer God tribe, the real God has appeared. Even though it's only an incomplete body, it was still able to withstand 5 rays of divine restriction light. However, how am I supposed to withstand 7 rays of divine restriction light? Can a 9 hell tablet withstand it? While Long Yu was thinking about this, the 9 hell steel suddenly emitted a burst of light, which condensed into 7 rays of dark light that shot towards the 7 divine forbidden lights. In the vicinity of the void barrier, the 7 divine forbidden lights and the 7-9 serene prison steel collided violently with the 7-9 serene prison steel's black light. The resulting explosion sent Long Yu and Yi Ziwei flying. However, after a series of explosions, the place calmed down. The 9 hell steel quietly floated in the void. The divine forbidden lights had also disappeared. The turbulence caused by the power of time seemed to have been erased. Chapter 17:17. Long Yu raised his hand and put the 9 hell steel back to his side. There doesn't seem to be any more surprises. Let's go. Let's see what's going on in this star zone and see if we can find a way to stop the ruins of God from spreading. Long Yu said to Yi Ziwei. He and the Saint Emperor were connected. After leaving the ruins of God, he learned about the situation in the Langu star zone. He knew that the most important thing now was to find a way to stop the ruins of God from spreading. The most important thing was the recovery plan that the God had mentioned. Right now, Long Yu didn't know what the recovery plan was. But now that he was in a completely different star zone, he might be able to find some answers. Yi Ziwei nodded. Right now, the two of them had 90 times and 80 times the strength density. Together, they didn't have to be afraid of the entire Langu star zone. They could openly gather information in this star zone. But soon, they realized that they were wrong. The reason why this star zone was so bright was that the creatures living in this star zone were pure light beings. The Light Clan. The Light Clan had a long lifespan. Some of them could even live for millions of years. When Long Yu and Yi Ziwei went into the territory of the Light Clan, they found that there were many traces of creatures from other races. But they were just traces. There were no other creatures. After passing through the barrier of the void, the star zone that appeared in front of Long Yu turned out to be a star zone where only one race existed. And this star zone was different from the one in the Langu star zone. In the Langu star zone, the 3 star zones were very far apart from each other. But this star zone was completely connected. It was the territory of the Light Clan. The Light Clan had a long lifespan. There were even elders of the Light Clan who could live for millions of years. However, their reproductive ability was relatively weak, so there weren't many members of the Light Clan. They weren't like the Human Clan and the Demon Clan, who had billions or even billions of members. But in this star zone, there were at least 1 million members of the Light Clan. More importantly, because of their long lifespan and the cultivation resources of the entire star zone, even if they were evenly distributed, the cultivation resources that each member of the Light Clan received would not be less than Long Yu's. As a result, almost every member of the Light Clan was a demigod. There were millions of creatures of the Light Clan in this space zone. 99% of them were demigods who had lived for countless years. Only a few of them were newborns of the Light Clan. 1,000,000 demigods. Long Yu and Yizue looked at each other and realized that they had underestimated the situation. With their strength, it was possible for them to dominate the Langu space zone. But in the territory of the Light Clan, it was impossible for them to fight against the Light Clan. If 1,000,000 demigods joined hands, even a god would be no match for them, not to mention Long Yu and Yizue. Fortunately, the Light race was not hostile to the alien races. On the contrary, they were quite friendly. When Long Yu and Yizue visited, the two demigods of the Light Clan surrounded them and invited them to visit a certain eternal source of light in the territory of the Light race. However, it was of no use to Long Yu and Yizue. The two of them were more concerned about something else. I wonder, seniors of the Light race, have you ever heard of the ruins of God? What Long Yu did not expect at all was that the two old guys of the Light race would turn hostile on the spot when they heard about the ruins of God. You've brought an ominous message. Leave the territory of the Light race immediately, or we will punish you with the divine light. The two creatures made of light issued a stern warning to Long Yu. An ominous sign? Yizue was confused. However, the resolute attitude of the Light race also meant that they could not get any information about the ruins of God or the revival plan from the Light race. There are a lot of temples and miracles in the territory of the Light race, but we won't have a chance to enter them. Long Yu shook his head. The Light Clan had already started to chase people away. He did not want to try the punishment of the divine light. Even an idiot would know that it was not something fun. It was very likely that both he and Yizue would die here. Therefore, they chose to leave. Leave? Where to? Yizue asked Long Yu. Let's try. Let's see if we can cross the barrier of the void again. If the Light Clan star area exists, there must be many other star areas. We could travel around. I'm sure we can find some clues. Maybe we can even return to the star area where the Langu star area is. Long Yu said he was relying on the deified effect of his seventh technique, the Path of 9 Serenities. He had not used the deified Path of 9 Serenities yet, so he did not know how effective it was. In any case, now that the Light race was driving them away, they could not stay. This was the only way to leave. After taking one last look at the boundless light in this space zone, Long Yu and Yizue decided to leave. Generally speaking, the Light race was friendly. However, the ruins of God seemed to have violated a taboo of their race, which was why they were driving them away. Under such circumstances, Long Yu could not stay here. Leaving was the first choice. The two of them crossed the immemorial rain bridge and arrived at the edge of the entire space zone. They were in front of the barrier of the void that they had appeared in. Let's try. Path of 9 Serenities, go through. Long Yu raised his hand, and a giant shadow of a black dragon appeared behind him. Suddenly, a jet of black light formed a dark path that broke through the barrier of the void. In an instant, a tunnel appeared. The 5-colored power of the 5 elements formed the entrance to this tunnel. Long Yu didn't know where this tunnel led to, but he had a feeling that he should be able to pass through the barrier of the void. Let's go. Long Yu and the Saint Emperor had always maintained a telepathic connection. He knew that the people in the Langu space zone could not wait for long. Therefore, he stepped into the tunnel without any hesitation. He and Yizue stepped in and out together. When they came back to themselves, they found that they had passed through the barrier of the void and arrived at another space zone. It works. Long Yu raised his head and saw a place similar to the Langu space zone. However, this place seemed to be a bit chaotic. Dozens of space zones, thousands of races. After Long Yu examined the situation of this place, he immediately understood that this was a war-torn space zone. It used to be a large space zone, but for some reason, it had been divided into dozens of space zones. In these dozens of space zones, there were thousands of races, and every race was in the midst of war. The demigods in this place basically did not have a power density higher than 60 times. Because the war was too common, demigods died very quickly. As a result, When Long Yu and Yi Ziwei came to this space zone, they had indeed become almost invincible existences. However, such existences had caused the united resistance of all the other races. When Long Yu and Yi Ziwei tried to contact some races and inquire about the ruins of gods or the recovery plan, they found that those races did not care about the ruins of gods at all. They directly planned to unite and deal with Long Yu and Yi Ziwei together. These races have been in the chaos of war for too long. As a result, their vision has become extremely narrow. In fact, it's not just them. Isn't it the same in the Langya space zone? If it weren't for the crisis of the ruins of gods, so many races would not have united at all. Long Yu sighed and led Yi Ziwei to the next place. In this chaotic star field, there are quite a few shrines and miracles. Unfortunately, Long Yu doesn't have the mood to go to these shrines and miracles. Moreover, there is no need for him to do so. His main task now is to gather information, not to improve himself. Right now, his strength density of 90 times had basically reached the peak. Unless he could find a way to resist the light of the god's prohibition and become a real god, his cultivation and strength would stop there. After leaving this chaotic space zone, Long Yu and Yi Ziwei went to another space zone. There is only one race in this space zone, the human race. This situation was a bit surprising for the two of them. However, these humans were divided into hundreds of camps, each with a temple as their foundation. They called themselves the descendants of gods and fought with each other for all kinds of training resources in the space zone. There are a lot of demigods. There are even more demigods with a strength density of 90 times than in our 3 space zones combined. There are hundreds of human camps, and the strongest experts in each camp are existences with a strength density of more than 80 times. Long Yu was shocked by the situation in this space zone. Also, compared to the previous 2 places, this space zone seemed to have the information that Long Yu was looking for. Those human beings called themselves the descendants of gods, and they had their own divine scholars. They would stay in temples and miracles for the rest of their lives and focus on studying the miracles and temples, trying to get close to the gods. Such an atmosphere did not exist in the Langya space zone on Long Yu's side at all. Therefore, when they learned that Long Yu was here for information about the divine ruins, many of them regarded him as the enemies of the gods and attacked him. They even joined forces with quite a few factions and quite a few powerful demigod existences with 90 times the power density, besieged Long Yu together. Long Yu felt that he could find the answer in this place. After all, this group of humans had a very deep understanding of the divine palace, so they did not just leave. Together with Yi Ziwei, they were engaged in a fierce battle. When Long Yu took out the 9 hell steel, the eyes of an old demigod human being with a strength density of 90 times shone, and he asked everybody to stop. This is a beacon. This man carries a beacon. He's the divine savior. The old demigod human immediately burst into tears and was too excited to say anything. However, Long Yu did not understand what he was trying to say at all. What was a beacon? Was he talking about the 9 hell steel? What was the divine savior? The human beings in this place all called themselves the descendants of gods, but Long Yu did not think that he was. Naturally, he did not know what the divine savior meant. However, after the old demigod human being finished talking, he dragged Long Yu to where he was and asked him to step into a temple. The temple of heaven and earth. The force that the old man represented was the divine savior. It was said that it was one of the oldest forces in this space zone. When the descendants of heaven and earth spread the news that the divine descendant of heaven and earth had appeared, more than 300 forces in the entire star field had stopped fighting and sent messengers to gather at the shrine of heaven and earth. They wanted to see the so-called divine descendant of heaven and earth. In this space zone, there's a legend that when the divine savior shows up with a beacon and roars of resistance, he will be able to blow the horn that breaks the curse of this world. The gods will be revived, and they will fight against the light of the divine prohibition and defeat the dragon-human fiend celestial that is hiding behind it. The old demigod human began to explain to Long Yu. The legendary beacon on the other hand, had such a feature. It was a steel that contained the divine language of shadow. Although there were many steels that contained the divine language of shadow, when the nine hell steel showed up, the old demigod human was naturally convinced that it was the beacon that they had been waiting for millions of years. The old demigod human beings could only live for thousands of years. Even a demigod with a strength density of 90 times couldn't live more than 10,000 years. The legend had been passed on for thousands of generations in this space zone. As for the source of a legend, it was naturally learned from the temples. A human demigod who stayed in the temples all his life communicated with the gods. Then, the news gradually spread out. It was risky for the gods to send messages. Therefore, it was extremely difficult for the gods to send messages out if they didn't stay in the temples and try to approach the gods all their lives. That was because the light of the divine prohibition was everywhere. Once the slightest sign of a divine spirit was revealed, the divine forbidden light would appear. Even shrines were shattered by the divine forbidden light, and the divine spirit experts that were hibernating within them were instantly annihilated, no longer existing. The divine palace was used by the gods to hide their existence. At the same time, it was used to secretly transmit some information to other living beings. This was the first time that Long Yu had heard of such a theory. However, based on what he had seen so far, it did make sense. Both the miracles and the temples revealed their power inconspicuously. Also, there was no doubt that their existence was of great help to other creatures. For the demigods, it would be extremely difficult for them to increase their strength density if they didn't rely on the temples. In the battle between the peak demigods of the naturals, the Temple of Void would have released the light of judgment, because for the gods that were hibernating in the temple, the power that they passed on to other creatures was not meant for those creatures to kill each other. Therefore, once a creature used the power they inherited, the light of judgment would show up. Under normal circumstances, the light of judgment wouldn't attract the light of the divine prohibition. However, at that time, a demigod of the naturals, namely the gray ancient tree, tried to transform into a god and attracted the light of the divine prohibition. As a result, the Voidwood Temple was affected. If Long Yu and the others hadn't helped the Voidwood Temple back then, the Voidwood Temple might have been completely destroyed by the light of the divine prohibition. In other words, there's actually a god hiding in every temple. It's just that they don't dare to show up for the time being. The so-called recovery plan was to send the message to all the temples and miracles so that all the gods would wake up and fight against the light of the divine prohibition together. And what the hell is that dragon-human-demon god? After sorting through these things, Long Yu still had some questions. However, before the gods were really awakened, nobody would know about the dragon-human-demon god, the light of the divine prohibition, and the true meaning of the ruins of gods. The humans in this space zone only knew the news leaked by some gods, and it gradually became a legend. If the gods directly showed up and told the humans too much, they would definitely be killed by the light of the divine prohibition. For example, the demigod of the extraterrestrial god clan was very strong, but he was heavily wounded. As soon as he woke up, he was attacked by the light of the divine prohibition. After resisting one wave of the light, he sacrificed himself and turned into a light curtain to protect the Langus space zone. If he hadn't sacrificed himself, the light of the divine prohibition would have been endless, just like what Long Yu had experienced in the Rain God Temple. If that's the case, let's send a message to all the temples. As long as the message arrives, the Nine Hell Steel will give the order and the so-called recovery plan will be activated, right? Long Yu narrowed his eyes and thought. He didn't know who came up with the recovery of the gods, but it should have something to do with the owner of the Nine Hell Steel. The previous owner of the Nine Hell Steel, the Geo Dragon Emperor, should also have been given such a mission. However, it seemed that he made a mistake and tried to transform into a demigod himself, which led to him being struck down by the light of the divine prohibition. He was turned into ashes and couldn't send the message to all the temples. And the Geo Dragon Emperor was the last dragon. There are less than 8 months left. If I don't make it in time, the Langia Space Zone will be destroyed. Even the entire Wild Sand Space Zone and the Heavenly Dipper Space Zone will be covered by the ruins of God in a short time. Long Yu knew the seriousness of the situation very well. Except for Yi Ziwei and the new martial world, all his friends and family were still in the Langia Space Zone. Although he could go through the barrier of the void, he had no sense of direction at all. He didn't know how to go back to the Langia Space Zone. The only way was to activate the recovery plan first. When all the gods woke up, maybe they could get more information, and maybe there would be a way to deal with the ruins of God. The light of the divine prohibition had already made this world lose hope. There was no possibility of becoming a god. Once they did, they would be killed. The light of the divine prohibition and the spreading ruins of God shrouded all the gods in despair. It would be fine if other creatures didn't know about it, but once they knew, they would feel a deep sense of despair. I hope the 9 Hell Steel can awaken the hope of this world. I don't want to be the savior of the world, and I don't want many people to become gods. I just want the people around me, my friends, my family, my lover, to be safe. With this belief, Long Yu reached an agreement with the strongest old man of the divine descendants of heaven and earth. This old man had an extremely powerful secret cultivation method, which was the spiritual link. He could link the minds of some people together and then let everyone know each other's state, just like the state Long Yu and the Holy Emperor were in. It was impossible for Long Yu to notify all the temples and miracles at the same time. If he relied on himself, just going through all the temples of the miracles would take an unknown amount of time. And it was just the temples in one space zone. Besides, what Long Yu needed to notify was even more than 10,000 sleeping gods in 10,000 temples, which meant that he probably had to go to dozens of space zones. It was impossible for him to do it alone. Fortunately, when the beacon appeared, all the tribes of the descendants of God in this space zone that called themselves the descendants of God joined hands and were all willing to help. 10,000 demigods might not even be enough in the Langia Space Zone. But in this space zone where the descendants of God were, 10,000 demigods could be easily gathered. There were more than 300 tribes of the descendants of gods, and one of the most powerful ones was the divine descendants of heaven and earth, which was where the demigod elder who was fighting against Long Yu was. Among the divine descendants of heaven and earth, there were more than 1,000 demigods. Because of the thorough study of the temples and miracles, it was relatively easier for the human beings in this space zone to become demigods than in other places. However, since the number of temples did not change, the competition after becoming demigods was even fiercer. It was not easy to reach the peak of demigod. The demigod elder of the divine descendants of heaven and earth chose a total of 10,000 demigod humans and linked their minds with Long Yu through the method of spiritual link. Follow the footsteps of the divine descendants of heaven and earth to all the temples and miracles, and bring the news of the revival plan to all the gods. After connecting the minds of the divine descendants of heaven and earth, all the human demigods who were connected through the spiritual link were seething. Mobilized by the powerful demigods, such as the divine descendants of heaven and earth, all the human demigods who were connected through the spiritual link were seething. It had never occurred to Long Yu that there were human beings in other parts of the barrier of the void, and such powerful human beings at that. 10,000 demigods. Although most of the experts in the space zone had been gathered here, they carried a solemn sense of duty, and they had to take action for the revival plan. Every one of them was responsible for a temple. In the meantime, Long Yu also brought the news to the Saint Emperor and asked the Saint Emperor to bring the news to the temples and miracles in the Langia Space Zone, the Wild Sand Space Zone, and the Heavenly Spirit Space Zone. With that in mind, as Long Yu decided to take action, all the gods would receive the message. The success or failure of the plan would be revealed very soon. Before that, Long Yu had to guide everybody to other space zones. After all, he was the only one who could pass through the barrier of the void. The temples and miracles in every space zone must be guarded by powerful creatures. However, even when the temples were not opened, Long Yu tried it, and found that he could still send people into the temples with the 9 hell steel. In such a way, even if the temples and other space zones are heavily guarded, I can still send people in before I leave. Long Yu gritted his teeth. The operation had finally begun. Chapter 17:18. Long Yu sent the demigods of the human race into the temples one after another. With the aura of the 9 hell steel, the demigods of the human race could enter the temples directly. Long Yu had never seen such an ability before. It must have appeared after the 9 hell steel took him and Yi Ziwei out of the ruins of God and showed the power of time. Soon, Long Yu sent more than 300 people into the temples and miracles in this star zone. Let's go back first. There are more than 300 temples in the chaotic area, in the star zone where the Light Clan is. I can't let them go either. Long Yu thought to himself, and kept using the primordial bridge of rain. At first, this forbidden skill of the ancient gods could only allow him to travel 3 regions at a time. Later, it increased to 30. Now, because the density of Long Yu's power had been raised to the limit, he could travel more than 100 regions at a time. This allowed him to travel through space at an extremely fast speed. If Long Yu were to return to the Langustar area now, he could fly from one end of the Langustar area to the other in just a few breaths. Even if he were to travel from the Langustar area to the Wild Sandstar area, it would only take him half an incense stick of time. Only with such speed could he travel to all the star zones and deliver the message to all the temples in a certain amount of time. When Long Yu returned to the star zone, where thousands of races were fighting, he forcibly sent people into the temples and left on the primordial bridge of rain. Those alien races couldn't do anything to Long Yu at all. The gap in strength was too huge. But when Long Yu returned to the star zone of the Light Clan, he was in big trouble because the overall strength of the Light Clan was too terrifying. In any case, he still needed someone to go in and deliver the message. However, the temples here all belong to the Light Clan, and the gods in them seem to belong to the Light Clan too. Luckily, there were only about 100 temples, which was only 1/3 of the number in the other star zones. This made Long Yu heave a sigh of relief. At first, when he broke into the temples of the Light Clan didn't care. For the Light Clan, although the temples were sacred, they didn't need anyone to guard them. They would naturally gather when they were opened. But when Long Yu forcibly sent more than 50 people into more than 50 temples of the Light Clan seemed to be infuriated. Not because Long Yu and the others broke into the temples of the Light Clan, but because they found that the alien race that had brought the bad news to the Light Clan had come again. Because the Light Clan was a life form of light, they were very fast in the first place. They could fly hundreds of thousands of kilometers in one breath. The demigod-level Light Clan was even more terrifying. They were almost as fast as Long Yu's primordial bridge of rain. Unfortunately, Long Yu's primordial bridge of rain had already improved, and its speed was 10 times faster than before. As fast as he could, Long Yu sent the demigods into all the temples of the Light Clan. Then he activated the primordial bridge of rain, ready to escape from the Light Clan space zone. This place was truly terrifying. The demigods of the Light Clan had all lived for hundreds of thousands of years. However, when Long Yu passed through the barrier of the void, he found that the Light Clan was following him. The Light Clan also had the means to pass through the barrier of the void. Well, whatever. Let's run. Long Yu gritted his teeth. There was no other way. It was impossible to kill all the demigods of the Light Clan. God knew if more of the Light Clan would come after him through the barrier of the void. Long Yu didn't have the courage to face millions of demigods of the Light Clan, so it was best not to touch any of them. After all, Long Yu was much faster than them. Just like that, Long Yu went to the next space zone. Very soon, he passed through the barrier of the void and came to a desolate space zone. There were not many creatures in this space zone. However, there were a lot of temples and miracles. Is it because of the war? Long Yu saw traces of many races and civilizations existing in this star field. It was just like the ruins of the Bone Race's remnant clans that Long Yu had seen in the Silent Star River, but they were much more magnificent. Because of the continuous war, there were not many creatures in this space zone. Even among the living beings, there weren't any demigod existences. There were only some very ordinary cultivators living on some cultivation planets. Even some of the divine rune origins had dried up. It was a scene of desolation. Long Yu didn't care too much about it. After all, his target was the temples and miracles. Nothing else mattered to him. Send these 10,000 people to the temples as fast as possible. Long Yu didn't stop at all. He kept activating the primordial bridge of rain. After so many movements, his small world was almost overwhelmed. However, he could only grit his teeth and hold on. At the current speed, it would take half a year to send all the 10,000 people to the temples. Time was too tight. Long Yu didn't feel safe at all. The problem of the ruins of God needed to be solved immediately. He couldn't waste any time. Every temple was in a different location. Long Yu had to find the locations of the temples first before he could fly over with the primordial bridge of rain. Thankfully, the 9 hell steels seemed to be connected to the temples and miracles, which allowed Long Yu to find the locations of the temples directly without missing any of them. Several demigods of the Light Clan chased after Long Yu persistently. If it was urgent, Yi Ziwei would help to stop them for a while. After Long Yu sent the people to the temples, he would take her and leave. Very soon, the demigods of the Light Clan couldn't catch up with Long Yu anymore. After all, Long Yu was moving forward with the primordial bridge of rain, and his enemies couldn't be that fast. Even if they caught up with him for a while, they couldn't follow Long Yu all the time. The next space zone was a technological civilization that had developed to the extreme. Many technological races had even dissected the training planets. As for the temples, they had also turned them into research institutes. It was a pity that those civilizations couldn't study the things in the temples. Few of the races in the technological civilizations had developed to the extreme, so they didn't have a deep understanding of the temples. To these civilizations, Long Yu could easily send people into the shrine. He came and went without a trace, and the other party could not stop him at all. The next space zone and the next space zone. Long Yu had seen too many space zones, too many races, and too many civilizations on his way. Some of the space zones were exhausted and about to be destroyed in the war. Some are like the Light Clan, where some long-lived races occupied the space zones and developed leisurely. But most of them were the space zones that had been spread by the ruins of gods and turned into nothingness. Not only were there no living creatures in those space zones, there weren't even any temples or miracles. Long Yu was protected by the ruins of gods the moment he stepped through the barrier of nothingness. Luckily, he could immediately exit the pathway that led to the barrier of nothingness. Otherwise, if he had barged in, it would have been a waste of time and even brought unknown dangers. Of the 10 space zones, 9 have been corroded by the ruins of gods and turned into nothingness. If the recovery plan isn't carried out soon, I'm afraid that the entire world will be covered by the ruins of gods, and everything will turn into nothingness. Luckily, Long Yu made it in time. It was also lucky that the ruins of gods had spread to the Langus space zone. Otherwise, Long Yu probably wouldn't have come out to carry out the recovery plan so soon. In Long Yu's small world, the 10,000 demigods that were connected to each other through the mental link were soon sent out. Then, 2,000, 3,000, at Long Yu's current speed, he could travel to 3 space zones and send out about 1,000 demigods in half a month. Soon, half a year had passed. Long Yu had seen too many alien races that he had never thought of before. He had visited all the temples and miracles in the universe, and 10,000 demigods had been sent into the temples. During the half a year, he had seen even more space zones that had been corroded by the ruins of gods and turned into nothingness. In those space zones, there used to be as many races and civilizations as the human race, the Langus space zone, and even the light race. However, when the ruins of gods arrived, the races and civilizations in those space zones couldn't resist at all. Most of them were completely turned into nothingness, without leaving any traces of history. In those empty space zones, Even Long Yu didn't know where the Alliance of Sufferers, which had once reached the Langus space zone, was. All in all, Long Yu had never seen the space zone where the Alliance of Sufferers was. In other space zones, he occasionally saw some relics of the Alliance of Sufferers and learned the news that the Alliance of Sufferers had once appeared from other races. However, just like in a Langus space zone, no members of the Alliance of Sufferers had really shown up. It was an extremely glorious alchemy organization. Every member of the organization was terrifyingly good at alchemy. Even a bitter sea medicine cauldron was enough to create a master of alchemy like Liao Lele, who could refine the best pills with the bitter sea medicine cauldron. It was not hard to imagine how many pills with unbelievable effects were circulating in the entire brilliant space zone when the Alliance of Sufferers was at its peak. There were even secret pills that could directly increase the power density of demigods. But now, they had been lost for too long. Because of the light of prohibition and the ruins of God, the entire universe was heading towards complete death. According to the current trend, it wouldn't be long before it completely fell into nothingness. In the end, Long Yu passed through a barrier of nothingness. This is the Wild Sand Space Zone. I'm back. Long Yu was immersed in joy. He didn't expect that after taking such a big detour, he would finally return to this space zone after sending almost everyone into the temple. But in that case, there are only so many space zones left in this universe. A mere 26 planetary regions. The Langus space zone is the 26th last to be invaded by the ruins of God. After the Langus space zone, there are the last 25 space zones. Calculating it, there are only a few hundred years left in the entire universe. If the recovery plan doesn't start, it will be completely too late. The Langus space zone can hold on for at most 10 years, and then the ruins of God will spread to the next target. Long Yu had almost traveled across the entire universe. From this space zone to that space zone, most of them could no longer be entered because they had been covered by the ruins of God, eroded, and turned into a completely empty space. Only death awaited those who entered. Holy Emperor, what's the situation here? Long Yu maintained contact with the Holy Emperor. The situation is good. The human race and the demon race have all retreated to the Wild Sand Space Zone and obtained 20 galaxies as living space. Although it's 10 times less than before, it's barely enough to survive. However, the divine barrier of the foreign gods over there seems to be unable to hold on any longer. I don't know if the divine barrier was wrong or something, but it feels like it will completely collapse in the next month or two. Hearing this, Long Yu was a little nervous. What about the temples and miracles here? Have they all been sent in? Some have entered, but some can't. The Holy Emperor sighed. Also, even if they enter the temples, I'm afraid there's no way to notify the gods inside, because without your 9 Hells prison tablet as a beacon, those gods won't trigger the condition to wake up. It seems that you have to do it in person. If that's the case, please come with me, everyone. Long Yu understood the current situation. Only demigods were allowed to enter the temple. Therefore, he needed more demigods to connect with his mind. After all, the old demigod had followed him all the way here, and it was still possible to connect other people to him. Long Yu took easy way to the Wild Sand Space Zone. Very soon, he met up with the Holy Emperor and the others. Red Oriole couldn't help but jump into his arms and cry. Long Yu could only hug her and comfort her gently for a moment. Then he let go. Red Oriole, help me bring the news to the gods in the temples. And everyone else, help me. Start arranging and distributing. Senior Consort Yu, you go to the Voidwood Temple. Come with me. Long Yu took Consort Yu to the Voidwood Temple in the Wild Sand Space Zone and sent Consort Yu there with the aura of the 9 Hells prison tablet. Her mind and Consort Yu's mind were connected through the mind of the old demigod. As long as the news from Long Yu's side spread, Concubine, you would be able to spread the news of the revival plan to the other deities in the Voidwood Temple. When all the deities were in hibernation, this was the only way to spread the news. Otherwise, once the gods regained a bit of consciousness, they would immediately be targeted by the forbidden light. If they wanted to revive, they had to revive together. Otherwise, it would be meaningless. Qin Yashuang, Zissou, you two are in charge of these 2 temples. Sun Ting Temple is in your hands. There seems to be 6 gods in hibernation in this clear cloud temple. If that's the case, Xing Wu, Duguijian, Jia Banxian, Xiao Zhu, Shuyan, Rin Pingfan, this clear cloud temple is in your hands. Long Yu made the arrangements one by one. Sun Ting was Long Yu's senior brother in the Jinqing clan. He followed Long Yu all the way from the Nine Hells realm of the Shenwu world and had become a new demigod. Those 6 people were originally Shu Chan's subordinates, from Old 1 to Old 6. Long Yu could be considered as Little 7 back then, but now he had become the leader of everyone. Under Long Yu's arrangement, everyone walked towards the shrine in an orderly manner. Gu Yixian, Gu Wanshan, Nanmin Xia, and Xiaoxing were also assigned to a temple. And Mo Zhaiqian, old General Huiyuan Bai, Sohan's Han, and Yu Qingsha were arranged by Long Yu to go to a godly ruin. There seemed to be 4 ancient gods sleeping in the godly ruin. Senior Yuhan Xin, this way. Xiao Wu, Shu Chan, Fenyu Xian, follow me. The temples in the Wild Sand Space Zone have been arranged. Let's go to the Heavenly Dipper Space Zone. It took Long Yu 3 days to send all the demigods of the human race and the demon race to the temples and the temples. There were 60 to 70 of them in total. If it wasn't enough, he could find demigod from the nature race and the oracle race to make up the numbers. After all, it was just a message. It wasn't dangerous or technical. In the end, Shualuo, Ba Xiong, and Su Yuqing all returned to the Langyu Space Zone under Long Yu's lead. Then, they entered the Rain Goddess Temple, the Void God Temple, and the other places respectively. Together with the demigods of other races, they occupied all the temples in the Langyu Space Zone. Senior, it's about time. Long Yu said to the demigod Old Man of the divine descendants of the universe. Okay, the old man nodded. He had connected the minds of all the demigods who had entered the temple, be they humans or aliens, through a secret cultivation technique. Then, Long Yu looked at the 12-colored light screen not far away and the gloomy, empty ruins of God outside the light screen. A message was transmitted from his mind and instantly fell into the minds of the tens of thousands of demigods that were scattered in the temples and miracles in the 26 space zones. For a moment, the temples in the universe seemed to have changed. In the Light Clan space zone, 2 demigods of the Light Clan were having fun near a temple. All of a sudden, an overwhelming divine power surged out of the temple, and a god of the Light Clan appeared in the sky above the temple. The god spirit's body, which was formed by purple light, flew out of the temple. Ha! The roar that had been silent for a long time burst out of the mouth of the purple god of the Light Clan, as if the whole world had been given new spiritual energy. The 2 demigods of the Light Clan who had been having fun were immediately shocked. This is Lord God. Lord God has come out. Is he not afraid of the light of the forbidden God? Around the temple of the divine descendants of the universe, countless demigods of the human race knelt and worshipped. A human god flew out of the temple, covered in a layer of mysterious silver light. The aura of divine power spread out. It was the divine power of the ancient god that had slept for a long time. It was much more powerful than the divine power that regular demigods could cultivate on their own. Has the day of the gods' revival finally come? I hope that I'm not the only one who has woken up. The human god's eyes were shining with dazzling light. He raised his heel and took a step forward, as if he had walked on a path of divinity. The infinite power of time rippled under his feet and spread out. In the dead silence of the void, in a divine relic, 2 alien gods woke up and walked out hand in hand. Alas, the sigh of the gods echoed. There were no living creatures in the Dead Space Zone. The endless war had destroyed everything in the space zone. But when the 2 alien gods woke up, the power of the gods spread out and quickly covered the cultivation planets. Patches of emerald green began to appear on the originally grayish-white or pitch-black cultivation planets, and even the void was filled with the fragrance of flowers. The power of time rippled. Although only a moment had passed, it seemed that millions of years had passed on the dead planets. Countless towering trees rose from the ground, and countless creatures lived and multiplied. With only a thought, the Dead Space Zone seemed to have come back to life. In other parts of the universe, wherever there was a temple, the same thing happened. Countless gods woke up. It was as if spring had come and hundreds of flowers bloomed. But at the same time, the entire universe seemed to tremble. Countless divine forbidden lights emerged from different parts of the universe and attacked the gods who had woken up at almost the same time. However, perhaps because there were too many gods waking up at the same time, the number and power of the divine forbidden lights were far less than usual. The gods who had woken up easily suppressed them and resisted them. But there's so many gods waking up at the same time. The power of the divine forbidden lights has been dispersed. Look at the power of the divine forbidden lights. There should be about 10,000 gods waking up at the same time. Is it all left? Billions of gods have been swallowed up by the ruins of God in billions of years. If this continues, I'm afraid even the temple I'm in will be swallowed up. No, this time is millions of years later than expected. What is going on? I'm afraid there's something wrong with the beacon. After the gods appeared, they began to communicate with each other. Very quickly, they sensed Long Yu's location, or rather, they sensed the location of the 9 Hell Tablet, the beacon. Let's go. The gods moved toward where Long Yu was in a flash. With the power of the gods, they could traverse countless star fields in the blink of an eye and arrive in front of Long Yu. This was a method to control time. No matter how slow the gods were, as long as they could control time, they would be able to travel to any location in an instant. There are only 26 worlds left. The gods sighed. Luckily, the revival plan was activated at the last moment. Otherwise, the ruins of God would have swallowed everything and turned them into nothingness. Greetings, gods. At this moment, Long Yu was with many alien demigods, respectfully facing the awakened gods in the Langustar Zone. He felt that the world was different the moment he sent out his thoughts. Then, terrifying existences shrouded in the aura of gods kept appearing around him. Only a small part of them were races that Long Yu had seen before. Most of them were unknown alien races. However, no matter which god it was, they were all on the same side. You are the one chosen by the beacon. No, you're not a dragon. How can you control the power of the 9 Hell Tablet? God Nether Dragon, come out and explain. A god of dragons raised his dragon claw and sent a huge divine thought in the direction of Long Yu. This divine sense was transmitted into the 9 Serene prison tablet. Then, Long Yu sensed that the 9 Serene prison tablet had finally undergone an intense change. God Nether Dragon, there is a god in the 9 Hell Tablet. Otherwise, it would not be able to take me out of the ruins of God alive. Long Yu's expression changed slightly. Chapter 17:19. From a 9 Hells prison steel, an intimidating divine power surged out. After sensing the denser and denser aura of the gods around, the Nether Dragon in the 9 Hells prison steel finally decided to show up. As for why he waited until now, Long Yu soon found out. Because when the giant black dragon flew out of the 9 Hell steel and flew into the void with the 9 Hell steel in its arms, there were 88 rays of light from the godly prohibition that came from all directions and instantly landed on the body of the giant black dragon. 88 rays of divine prohibition light. If he had appeared earlier, it would have been difficult to resist, but there are almost 10,000 gods here. Long Yu's eyes widened. Countless gods used their own means and easily resisted the 88 rays of divine prohibition light. Then, the enormous black dragon turned around and looked around. Because he had been following Long Yu, the Nether Dragon knew the whole thing very well. Only you are left. The black dragon that seemed to have come from the depths of hell seemed to be the source of creation, reflecting the tens of thousands of gods in the field. Each of those gods was countless times stronger than the strongest demigods. Even the strongest demigods like Silver Tree, Long Yu, and Ambassador Jean were incomparable to any god because the gap was too huge. When the divine power reached a density of 100 times, it would be combined with the power of time, and a god that could use the power of time could deal with thousands of demigods alone. Therefore, since the revival of the gods, what happened in the field had little to do with Long Yu and the others. Whether it was the ruins of gods or the light of divine prohibition, there were only things for the gods to deal with. Finally, it's done. Long Yu was completely relieved. If he still couldn't stop the spread of the ruins of gods, there was nothing he could do. If it was something that even the gods couldn't do, don't slack off. Don't give up. From now on, inform all the demigods who meet the requirements to transform into real gods. 10,000 gods are far from enough. Divine Netherworld Dragon's divine sense was instantly transmitted into Long Yu's mind, making his heart tremble. 10,000 deities were not enough. The Dragonman demon god is the strongest existence that controls the ruins of God and the divine forbidden light. However, he is currently in a dormant state. Otherwise, this universe would have turned into nothingness long ago. If you want to completely destroy the Dragonman demon god, just 10,000 gods is far from enough. God Nether Dragon continued to transmit his divine will, extremely solemn. Originally, only the dragon race could use the 9 Underworld Tablet. The Geo Dragon Emperor was the last divine dragon who inherited my will. Unfortunately, he didn't listen to my advice and forcefully tried to break through to become a deity. In the end, he was killed by the Dragonman demon god with the divine forbidden light. Therefore, I chose a person with good will from the future universe to come to this era and take on the heavy responsibility. Starting from the 9 Underworld realm, along the way, Long Yu, you didn't let me down. God Nether Dragon's divine will was transmitted to the hearts of the surrounding deities. These words caused Long Yu and the others to be instantly shocked. The future universe, a person with an excellent temperament and willpower, was this referring to Long Yu? Could it be that the world I came from, that technological world, was the future universe? God Nether Dragon could actually pull me from the future universe. What a powerful method! Long Yu was shocked. Apart from the Holy Emperor, no one knew Long Yu's true origin. Similarly, Consort Yu didn't know. Consort Yu only knew that she had followed someone's will and engraved the 9 Underworld Dragon mark on Long Yu's chest. She didn't know that Long Yu had been chosen from the future universe. The future universe. Long Yu, no wonder you're so powerful. So you've never been here before. Man, Xin snorted. You even made me jealous. I didn't even know. Long Yu could only smile bitterly until God Nether Dragon said this. He had never known that his original world was actually the future universe. But that future universe is separated from our current space-time by a powerful existence. I also did my best to choose you. Now, I can't even see what that future universe looks like. But it doesn't matter. As long as that future universe exists, it proves that we can kill the Dragonman demon god and save the entire universe. God Nether Dragon continued. Countless gods understood what was going on. At the same time, they expressed their disdain for Geo Dragon Emperor. He had acted on his own at a critical moment and almost caused the entire recovery plan to fail. If God Nether Dragon had not chosen a candidate from the future universe, the ruins of God would have turned the entire universe into nothingness. Although that would mean that even the Dragonman demon god himself would not be spared, he was determined to destroy the world. Whether he existed or not had nothing to do with him. It's coming. Suddenly, all the gods present felt their hearts skip a beat. Then they saw countless rays of light appear in the sky again, shooting toward the gods present. As long as they could sense the gods' presence, the rays of light would not stop and would continue to bombard them unless the core of the ruins of God was destroyed. Divine Screen, a god of the purple light race, raised his hand, and a purple screen of light suddenly appeared, covering the sky and the many gods. Then, the endless power of time flowed and filled the purple screen of light, blocking most of the rays of light. Let all the demigods try to transform into gods as fast as possible. Now is the best time to destroy the core of the ruins of God. The purple light race god spread his divine will to the surroundings, and even through the ripples of the power of time, it spread all the way to all the remaining 26 star fields in the universe, so that all the demigods could hear this shout. Including Long Yu, they knew that it was about time. When countless gods had recovered and were beginning to resist the rays of light, it was the best time to break through and become a god. Moreover, if they did not break through now, there would be no more opportunities. If the gods failed to attack the core of the ruins of God, then everyone would become nothingness. Since that's the case, I'll improve. Long Yu's divine power of death had already increased to 90 times the strength density, which was the same as his own strength density. Then, it stopped increasing, fearing that it would attract the rays of light. Now that there was nothing to worry about, he continued to improve. However, there was still 10 times the strength density. If he wanted to increase it, it would not be something that could be done in an instant. It would definitely take a lot of time. It was the same for other peak demigods who were close to gods. When Long Yu and the others began to try to break through, the 10,000 gods led by the Nether Dragon god finally officially began to move. The current ruins of God is so vast that it is unimaginable. If the core of the ruins of God is still there, I'm afraid it will take endless time to reach it. In addition, we have to attack the core of the ruins of God. We have to advance as a team with at least 1,000 gods, and there will definitely be sacrifices. That's right, there must be gods resisting the power of the ruins of God and creating conditions for other gods to advance. Only in this way can we go deep into the ruins of God and reach the core of the ruins of God. Once the core of the ruins of God is breached, the Dragon Man demon god will definitely wake up. At that time, it will be the stage for new gods. We gods will definitely be almost dead when we attack the core of the ruins of God. This was an extremely tragic battle. Long Yu knew that there were not many new gods in the Langus star zone. There were even some star zones that had completely become dead zones. Not to mention new gods, there were not even many demigods. However, there was only one star zone that he could place high hopes on. That was the light race's star zone. Among the millions of demigods of the light race, there were more than 1 million peak-level demigods. These were all existences that had the possibility of becoming gods. If these 1 million gods appeared, then their overall strength would be extremely strong. I wonder what kind of existence that Dragon Man demon god is and what kind of combat power it has. Even then, the divine taboo light didn't appear to attack those new gods. It could be seen that the light of the divine prohibition had now been completely concentrated on the nearly 10,000 awakened gods. It was exactly because of this that a recovery plan was needed. Otherwise, if they fought on their own, even if they were gods, they would not be able to resist the endless light of the divine prohibition, let alone give other demigods a chance to step into the realm of gods. In the entire universe, the number of new gods was increasing, and they had all mastered the power of time. They were all rushing toward the Langus space zone where Long Yu was. More and more gods gathered around Long Yu, because these gods all knew that Long Yu was the only one left who still had contact with those awakened gods. More and more new gods of the light race came to Long Yu's side. Many old members of the light race expressed their apologies to Long Yu. They did not know that there was such a recovery plan. Before, the life of the light race as a whole was too leisurely. After billions of years, they had forgotten about the existence of the ruins of God. But after God, Nether Dragon's divine thoughts spread across the entire universe. The light race finally understood the current situation. Therefore, they were full of apologies to Long Yu. They actually drove him away at that time, but Long Yu did not care about this. Besides, there were so many gods of the light race now, so he could not care about this. Everyone, get ready to deal with the Dragon Man demon god. Until now, I still don't know what kind of existence it is, and it seems that even God, Nether Dragon, does not know. Long Yu exchanged messages with God Nether Dragon, And only then did he know that God Nether Dragon had actually accepted this important task halfway. In ancient times, the dragon race was the lord of the gods, dominating the world. Later, the Dragon Man demon god was born, with the power to destroy the world, causing the entire universe to collapse. When God Nether Dragon was born, the dragon race was still the overlord of the gods, but this was of no use because at that time, the Dragon Man demon god had completely suppressed the gods of the entire universe. The ruins of God had already begun to spread, and countless gods had built temples and hibernated to ensure that they would not be killed by the light of the forbidden god. God Nether Dragon had never seen the true face of the Dragon Man demon god. He only knew that later, a powerful person took the initiative to get close to the Dragon Man demon god and actually drag the Dragon Man demon god into hibernation. Since then, the gods have been given so much time to start the recovery plan. This was the last generation of God Nether Dragon's recovery plan. If this generation's recovery plan did not succeed, then the entire universe would definitely be destroyed. The previous recovery plan had been carried out several times, but every time it was carried out, it was not completely successful. They were all stopped by the claws of the Dragon Man demon god, causing them to be unable to even destroy the core of the ruins of God. By the time all the claws of the Dragon Man demon god were destroyed, the ruins of God had already spread to more than half of the universe. Even the gods of the dragon race had died in the hands of the ruins of God, the light of the forbidden god, or the claws of the Dragon Man demon god. Geo Dragon Emperor was the last of the dragon race. He was also the existence that had inherited the 9 Hell Tablet. God Nether Dragon was seriously injured and could only hide in the 9 Hell Tablet. Once he showed his head, he would be obliterated by the light of the forbidden god. He knew that he was the last chance, so he protected himself very well. Unfortunately, Geo Dragon Emperor did not understand the plan he had left behind and forcibly tried to break through and was killed. Fortunately, Long Yu had finally comprehended it. Unfortunately, in the end, there were only 10,000 gods left. Such a small number of gods would probably not even be able to destroy the core of the ruins of God. However, no matter what, he had to try, otherwise this universe would eventually turn into nothingness. Do your best, seniors. All the demigods and new gods were hoping that God Nether Dragon and the others could destroy the core of the ruins of God. In the last revival plan, all the claws of the Dragon Man demon god had been wiped out. If there were no accidents, they should be able to destroy the core of the ruins of God. After the appearance of gods, the area around Long Yu had become a holy land for cultivation. This was because gods could control the power of time, and they could slow down the time in this area by even 10,000 times. One day would be like 300 years of cultivation. Moreover, with the one-on-one help of gods, demigods could quickly find a secret cultivation method that was suitable for them. From then on, they could continuously cultivate and increase the density of their power. In the end, they could comprehend divine power and move towards the direction of gods. Many people around Long Yu had entered these areas that slowed down time to cultivate. Of course, Long Yu himself was the same. Finally, 3 months after God, Nether Dragon, and the others set off, Long Yu broke through and became a real god. God. This is a god. This feeling is much more powerful than a demigod. Long Yu clenched his fists. He could feel that all kinds of powers were surging in his body. The power of time was flowing all over his body, and his lifespan had already been increased to infinity. As long as he was not killed, he could continue living for millions of years, tens of millions of years. Moreover, Long Yu seemed to feel that there was a special power in his body that was ready to move. It was the power that he had comprehended in the ruins of God. At this time, he and Yi Ziwei looked at each other. She had clearly comprehended a bit of this power, but this power could not be used by them. God Nether Dragon and the others had stepped into the ruins of God for 3 months, and they had already lost more than 300 gods. But it was also at this time that a few squads finally found the core of the ruins of God, including God Nether Dragon himself. He had also found the core of the ruins of God and directly attacked the core of the ruins of God. At this time, God Nether Dragon reminded Long Yu and the others to prepare to fight against the Dragon Man demon god. Although it had only been 3 months, new gods were constantly emerging in this universe, especially on the side of the light race. There were more than 700,000 light race gods gathered around Long Yu. These light race gods were looking forward to the upcoming battle, because as long as they won this battle, they would be able to freely enjoy the time of the gods and would no longer be threatened by the light of the divine prohibition. The ruins of God would also retreat, and the entire universe would return to its most prosperous time, the prosperity of all races. That was the era before the ancient times, the era when the dragon race was the ruler. The light race yearned for it. More and more millions of new gods gathered around Long Yu. Even beside him, Yi Ziwei, Consort Yu, Red Oriole, and the others had all become new gods. Because of the help of the power of time, they had enough time to cultivate. As long as they had enough time and enough cultivation resources, becoming a god was not too difficult. Of course, the prerequisite was that they had enough talent. Otherwise, they would not even be able to cross the threshold of demigod. Get ready. Suddenly, Long Yu received a telepathic message. The core of the ruins of God was about to be completely destroyed. Just as he received this telepathic message, something strange happened. The ruins of God in front of the gods suddenly erupted with a terrifying power. The power of nothingness swept out, as if the ruins of God had exploded from within, pushing the ruins of God to expand towards the outside world. Of course, this expansion was only temporary. Retreat, retreat. Long Yu immediately raised his hand and ordered all the godly spirits to retreat. They were all experts at the godly spirit level. With the circulation of the power of time, they retreated to another star field. The ruins of God exploded and spread, directly destroying the Langius star field. It destroyed the star field where the human race, the demon race, the nature race, the oracle race, the six-winged race, and the other races lived, turning it into nothingness. However, the explosion stopped here. Then, the entire ruins of God retreated at an extremely fast speed like the tide. Although the space after the ruins of God retreated was full of desolation, it was no longer occupied by the ruins of God. With the ability of the gods, they could completely rebuild these desolated space and make it a prosperous place. The Langius star field has recovered. Long Yu and the others were pleasantly surprised to find that the entire Langius star field had recovered its space. It was no longer empty, and the ruins of God had retreated to the outside of the barrier of nothingness. Even when he went to the barrier of nothingness and directly passed through it, he found that the opposite side of the barrier of nothingness was also a space riddled with holes. However, it was no longer covered by the ruins of God. It was the remaining normal space. The ruins of God are broken. The ruins of God have retreated. Many gods let out cheers of joy. Everyone knew how terrifying the ruins of God were. When these gods rushed to where Long Yu was from other star fields, they had seen too much space that had been eroded by the ruins of God and turned into nothingness. It was completely dead, and even space and time did not exist. That kind of place was hopeless. But now, although these spaces were broken, full of desolation and holes, they still contained hope. It's just that the Netherworld Dragon and the others are no longer here. Long Yu's heart trembled. He could only feel that the moment the core of the ruins of God was broken, all the gods and the surroundings were devoured by the void and completely disappeared from this world. Only the powerful gods like the Netherworld Dragon gathered all their strength to preserve the 9 Hell Tablet and then sent it to Long Yu's side. Only the 9 Hell Tablet is left. Long Yu discovered that in the 9 Hell Tablet, there was still a 7th layer of the core space. In the core space of the 7th layer, there was actually a consciousness that had been sealed for a long time. Geo Dragon Emperor. Let me out. Geo Dragon Emperor's consciousness discovered Long Yu's prying and immediately roared. Other than the consciousness of Geo Dragon Emperor, there seemed to be many remnant souls of the divine dragon in the core space of the 7th layer. Are these the remnant souls of the dragon race left behind by the Netherworld Dragon Emperor? These remnant souls of the dragon race don't seem to be of much use. Long Yu shook his head and ignored it. As for releasing the Juyo Dragon Emperor, it was naturally impossible. If the Juyo Dragon Emperor had not been stubborn, the situation would not have been as bad as it was now. If the recovery plan had been implemented during the time of Juyo Dragon Emperor, there would have been at least hundreds of thousands or even millions of gods left. In this way, it would have been much easier to deal with the Dragon Man Demon Beasts. But now they only had a few new gods left to deal with the last Dragon Man Demon God. Most importantly, Long Yu and the others did not even know what the Dragon Man Demon God was. The densely packed light race gods were all flashing with light, indicating that they were also in a state of confusion and did not know what to do next. These light race, although they have a long lifespan, they don't seem to be very smart. No, they don't even use their brains to think. They are completely made of light. Long Yu shook his head. Anyway, these light race were simple-minded. Although there were many of them, it was still within the scope of control, and there was no need to worry about them causing trouble. And now, all the new gods basically regarded Long Yu as their leader, because he was the one who had gathered everyone. And it was because of him that the gods were revived and the ruins of divinity were defeated. He also had the 9 Hell Tablet, which was the representative of the Netherworld Dragon God, the veteran god. In any case, the only one who had the decisive decision was Long Yu. Senior, connect your minds, and then everyone will spread out and search. If there is any suspicious existence, everyone will go to that place. Long Yu said to the demigod Old Man of the divine descendants of heaven and earth. This old man was also a god now, and his mental connection was even more skillful. Even if he were to connect millions of creatures at the same time, there would be no problem. After everyone was connected by his mental connection, they spread out. After the ruins of divinity retreated, this world was just too vast. Even with the continuous flow of the power of time of the gods, it was still very difficult to explore all of it. But soon, the gods realized that there was no need to actively search at all, because very soon, they clearly felt that there was an extremely eerie aura far away from the ruins of divinity that was constantly getting stronger, stronger, and stronger, as if it was waking up from a deep sleep. Is it the Dragon Man Demon God? While Long Yu was shocked, there were already gods of the light race rushing in that direction. With the flow of the power of time, no matter how slow they were, they could reach their destination in an instant. But this was under normal circumstances. In fact, on the way to the sleeping Dragon Man Demon God, there were constantly claws and fangs of the Dragon Man Demon God waking up. A 6-armed, 6-winged human. Through the mental connection, Long Yu saw the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man Demon God. They turned out to be the 6-armed, 6-winged human that he had seen in the temple before. They were pitch black, and their strength completely surpassed that of the new gods. How to improve the power of the gods? We have no idea at all. Damn it, when the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man Demon God wake up, we are no match for them at all. Long Yu sensed that the claws and fangs of a 6-armed and 6-winged Dragon Man Demon God that were besieging 3 new gods of the light race were shattered by the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man Demon God. Their bodies, which were made entirely of light, were reduced to the tiniest photon particles and then annihilated in the deepest darkness. At least 7 new gods of the light race were needed to deal with the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man Demon God. And these were just the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man Demon God. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the Dragon Man Demon God itself was. If this goes on, I'm afraid. Long Yu gritted his teeth. The situation was very wrong. The claws and fangs of the Dragon Man Demon God must have died before, but as long as the Dragon Man Demon God woke up, these claws and fangs could appear without limit. The Dragon Man Demon God had the ability to create these claws and fangs. Every previous revival operation was carried out when the Dragon Man Demon God was not awake. But now that the core of the ruins of God had been destroyed, and the Dragon Man Demon God had completely woken up, there was no chance of luck. Back then, when the dragon race was at its peak, countless powerful gods were unable to deal with the Dragon Man demon god. Now, we're only left with a small number of new gods. How can we defeat that Dragon Man demon god? Long Yu gritted his teeth. Not to mention the others, just the Netherworld dragon alone, as well as the veteran gods who had just gone to destroy the core of the ruins of God. Each of them was at least equivalent to the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man demon god. In other words, they were at least 7 times stronger than these new gods. In fact, the Netherworld dragon was the strongest, and he could probably deal with several of the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man demon god alone. One could imagine that when the Dragon Man demon god first appeared, the gods at their peak were even stronger, and the total number of gods must have exceeded the current 1 million. I'm oversimplifying the problem, but it seems that I can think about it from another angle. Back then, who made the Dragon Man demon god fall into a deep sleep? What kind of method was used? Perhaps we can start from this. Long Yu stood beside the 9 serene prison steel and fell in a deep thought. On the front line, the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man demon god kept appearing. 1, 2. In the end, there were hundreds of them. However, when the light race gods pounced on them like waves, these claws and fangs of the Dragon Man demon god were easily killed. But the light race gods also lost many, and the number of casualties was even more than the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man demon god. The Dragon Man demon god had just awakened, and it seemed that he could not create the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man demon god on a large scale. However, at this time, a pair of huge pitch-black eyes appeared in the sky. I'm awake. I'm awake. I am the Dragon Man demon god. The whole world will be destroyed because of me. Even the gods will tremble because of me. 3 divine thoughts were transmitted to almost everyone's mind, so that all the creatures in the universe received these 3 messages. Some of the weaker creatures were even shocked to death by these 3 divine thoughts. They could not resist at all. Along with these 3 divine thoughts, a completely unstoppable aura was transmitted from the pair of huge pitch-black eyes in the sky. Under this aura, some of the new gods of the light race who were fighting against the claws and fangs of the Dragon Man demon god were directly killed and turned into nothingness. This is the power of the ruins of God. Although the core of the ruins of God has been destroyed, the Dragon Man demon god still controls the power of the ruins of God and can easily deal with the gods. Even in Long Yu's consciousness, he saw a being with a dragon's head and a human's body appear in an infinitely distant space, and at the furthest place that the current light race gods had gone to. This being looked like a dragon's head and a human's body, but it was completely pitch black and could not be seen clearly at all. All the light that shone on it would be absorbed. Only its pair of eyes could be seen. It was the pair of huge eyes that was reflected in the sky. Was that the guy known as the Dragon Man demon god? Divine prohibition light. From Long Yu's observation, the being with the dragon's head and a human's body suddenly emitted the divine prohibition light. Then, dozens of new gods of the light race were completely killed. They could not put up any resistance at all. The divine prohibition light. Be it the divine prohibition light or the ruins of God, there is no room for resistance at all. They are definitely not a match for it in a head-on fight. Not even 1,000,000 new gods can defeat this guy. Long Yu immediately understood this. He immediately communicated with all the deities of the Light Clan through the spiritual link as fast as he could. However, these light race gods were all stubborn. Seeing that the Dragon Man demon god had killed dozens of light race gods, the remaining light race gods were enraged. They all launched attacks at the Dragon Man demon god. The power of time, the power of the 5 elements, the divine power of various attributes, all of them were released at the Dragon Man demon god. Meanwhile, the divine prohibition light and the power of the ruins of God were constantly emitted from the Dragon Man demon god. In an instant, groups of light race gods were killed. However, these light race gods did not know fear at all. They continued to attack the Dragon Man demon god. Long Yu's forehead was full of cold sweat. Weren't these light clan's deities too straightforward? But then again, the light race was small in number. If one of them died, the rest of the light race would be filled with righteous indignation, especially now that the Dragon Man demon god, the destroyer of the universe, was right in front of them. If they did not kill it, the rest of the light race would not be able to survive. Therefore, these light race gods simply attacked with all their might. Many of them even used self-destruction to bombard the Dragon Man demon god. Unfortunately, all the attacks were useless against the draconic demon god. The power of the ruins of God was released, instantly turning any power into nothingness. Even the power of self-destruction was unable to harm the draconic demon god in the slightest. Meanwhile, the Dragon Man demon god could casually release a few beams of divine prohibition light and kill a group of new light race gods. The two sides were not on the same level at all. Haha, are you afraid? If you are, then surrender. I won't let any of you go. In this world, the most important thing to me is no longer here. Everything else will be buried with it. Anyway, this world doesn't need me, and I don't need this world. Humph, I actually slept for so long. You guys got off easy. As these two divine thoughts appeared, Long Yu felt that something was wrong. This Dragon Man demon god seemed a little retarded. Soon, the appearance of the Dragon Man demon god finally appeared in front of everyone. When Long Yu saw it, he was stunned. This guy, although he had a dragon's head and a human's body, the dragon's head was clearly that of a young dragon, and that human's body was just that of a child's. Young, human-dragon fusion. Long Yu had never seen such a creature. Even some alien races did not have a dragon's head and a human's body. It could only be said that this guy was probably a descendant of the human race and the dragon race. From the front, his eyes did not seem that evil. They were just filled with a kind of hatred for the world. Right, what is the existence that he said was the most important to him? Long Yu recalled that there had been an existence that had actually found a way to make this guy fall asleep. Thinking that this guy was a child, perhaps there was a way to kill this guy. The Dragon Man demon god, the son of a dragon's head and a human's body, was a child. Although he was extremely powerful and even had a divine power like the power of the ruins of God, he was ultimately still a child. His mind was also immature. Because of this, he had the idea of destroying the world. And this idea, Long Yu guessed, came from his parents being killed. Father is a dragon? Mother is a human? Or vice versa? But no matter what, if I want to convince this guy, whether it is to make him continue to sleep or persuade him to give up on destroying the world, perhaps this is the only way. From the few divine thoughts that the other party revealed, Long Yu guessed some information about this Dragon Man demon god. Since he could not defeat him in a head-on battle, he could only rely on his guesses and try his best. But now, if Long Yu went directly, he would definitely be killed by that guy. At the very least, he had to get someone similar to that guy. In the 9 Hell Tablet, there's still many remnant souls of divine dragons. Long Yu took a look at the 9 Hell Tablet, and then at Yi Wei, who was beside him, and a plan was gradually forming. The Dragon Man demon god was in the midst of killing when he suddenly realized that the group of light tribe deities were retreating. This made him smirk. Why are they running? Don't run, continue to fight. However, immediately after, he saw a spiritual body leisurely appear in front of him. This spiritual body looked like a human, but the Dragon Man demon god felt a sense of familiarity. This feeling was a mixture of the human race and the dragon race. Finally, he was a little puzzled. Who are you? I'm the same kind as you. The spiritual body opened its mouth to speak. This spiritual body was the final product that Long Yu had created. It was a product that was used to deal with the Dragon Man demon god. This was a young human who looked a little like Long Yu and Yi Wei. However, it was only a spiritual body for the time being. This spiritual body was formed by the power of the ruins of God. This was part of the power that Long Yu and Yi Wei had comprehended from the ruins of God together. Then, it was integrated with countless remnant souls of divine dragons, and then led by the subconsciousness that Long Yu had created himself. After becoming a deity, Long Yu had reached the level where he could create living beings. Therefore, he created a subconsciousness that was similar to his own, and it led the many remnant souls of divine dragons that he had extracted from the 9 Hell Tablet. Thus, this spirit body contained the aura of Long Yu, the aura of Yi Wei, the aura of the divine dragon, and the aura of the ruins of God. It was precisely because of this that the draconian demon god felt a sense of familiarity. Same kind? Nonsense, I have never seen my own kind. How did you create it? If it's a spiritual body that is a mixture of various auras, I can create it myself. Although the Dragonman demon god was a child, he did not fall for it directly. I don't know what you have experienced. Long Yu controlled the spiritual body and did not continue discussing whether he was the same kind or not. Instead, he continued, however, the world that you want to destroy is actually long gone. All of the dragon race has been destroyed, and all of the human race has been reincarnated thousands of times. I have experienced the greatest pain in the world. My father, the blood dragon god, abandoned me. He also killed the mother who had adopted me and loved me. My most beloved mother is dead. Dead. I hate my father. I want to kill him and the entire world that he ruled. As the Dragonman demon god spoke, a crazed look appeared on his face. Seeing this, Long Yu immediately thought about it. Could it be that this guy was discriminated against and abused because of the hybrid between human and dragon? So after gaining power, he wanted to destroy the entire world? Could it be that because of your appearance, your father abandoned you? How heartless. If it were me, I would also hate such a father. The spiritual body said, however, this world is no longer under his rule. In fact, the dragon race no longer exists in this world. This is a brand new world, and no one in this world will discriminate against you. You're lying. The Dragonman demon god snorted coldly. If I didn't have such great power, anyone would want to kill me. I'm halfway there. When Long Yu heard this, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. After all, he was still a child. First, he had to think of a way to get close to the other party. Then, he would stir up the other party's desire to argue. Seeing that Long Yu was controlling the spiritual body to converse with the Dragonman demon god that had slaughtered gods like dogs, Yi Wei, Consort Yu, Red Oriole, and the others were all astonished. When the Dragonman demon god appeared and slaughtered gods, they were filled with despair. Only Long Yu was able to deduce the Dragonman demon god's mentality from the fact that it was still a child, and thus found a chance of survival. As expected of Long Yu. Right now, only Long Yu could think of such a method. First, he had to get close to it, or at least not make it hostile. Thus, the creation of the spiritual body was the key. What he said next was not too strange. As long as he thought about it, it was very easy to think of such a way to induce it. Since you think so, let's make a bet. Pretend that you don't have any power and walk around this world. See if anyone wants to kill you. If there is, you can continue to destroy the world. If there isn't, you can give up on destroying the world. How about it? Controlling the spiritual body. Long Yu said so. Are you joking? There are billions of races in this world. How can no one want to kill me? The Dragonman demon god laughed loudly. Even if I'm not a hybrid between a human and a dragon, I've brought so much death and nothingness. All living beings in this world have long viewed me as a great enemy. How can they not kill me? Then do you believe what I say? Or are you afraid to take the bet? Long Yu said calmly, I'll take the bet. But if anyone wants to kill me, I'll turn all of you deities into withered totems and hang them on my waist. The Dragonman demon god did not believe that no one would kill him. It had to be known that back then, he was famed for his viciousness. Whether it was the dragon race or the human race, they all viewed him as the ugliest existence and wanted to kill him. There were also billions of other races who viewed him as the main culprit for causing chaos in the world. Such a legend would eventually be passed down, wouldn't it? But he did not know that this world was no longer the one he had lived in. Hundreds of millions of years had passed. This world was getting old and had long lost its vitality. Not to mention the dragonmen demon gods. Even the dragon race did not know what those living beings were. Those creatures had no impression of the Dragonman demon god, nor would they be hostile for no reason. After the bet was made, the Dragonman demon god did not continue to kill the deities of the Light Clan. He strolled toward the vicinity of the Langia 3-star zone where Long Yu was. When the Langia 3-star zone was completely destroyed, the deities created a brand new star zone. The human race, the monster race, the nature race, and other races all lived in this star zone. Not long after that, other than the deities, no one knew that their opponent was the Dragonman demon god. Therefore, when the Dragonman demon god stepped into this star zone, all the creatures thought he was just an ordinary alien race and only took a few glances at him. The human race, the monster race, the nature race, the whale race, the cloud race, the six-winged race, the machine race, the sword race, the cicada race, the black mist race, none of the creatures had any intention to kill the Dragonman demon god. Although they did not know the situation of the war, they knew that it was a crucial moment for the survival of their race. It was completely normal to see some strange alien races. How is that possible? The Dragonman demon god walked around the star zone and found that no one wanted to kill him. He could not help but feel surprised. He was sure that the powers of Long Yu and the other deities did not permeate this star zone at all. In other words, it was not possible that Long Yu and the others had any power to control this star zone. Instead, the creatures in this star zone did not have any hostility toward him. He then walked to another star zone. Soon, he arrived at the human star zone where the descendants of heaven and earth were. This was a place that he was more concerned about. After all, it was the human race, his mother's race. However, he found that no one in this star zone was hostile toward him. In fact, all the creatures in the star zone now knew something because of the continuous appearance of deities in the major star zone. Even the star zone that was originally in chaos had calmed down. No matter what kind of alien race appeared, they would only take a few glances at them. At most, they would stay a little further away to ensure their safety. They would not do anything to them. No one wanted to kill the Dragonman demon god, because no one knew that he was the god of destruction. After all, this was not the era that he lived in, where everyone knew everything. Moreover, out of the billions of races, only a few were left. There were only 26 star zones that still had life. Compared to when he first existed, it was as insignificant as a drop of water in the ocean. So, there's nothing left. The Dragonman demon god had lost his gamble. However, he had the strongest power, the power of the ruins of God. Although he did not want to destroy the world, he did not want to see the world continue like this. I lost, but I want to create a new world. You can't stop me. The Dragonman demon god arrived at the center of the universe. This was where the core of the ruins of God used to be. What is he going to do? Long Yu's expression changed slightly. I don't know. No one knew the answer to this question, but since he admitted that he had lost, he probably would not destroy the world, right? He just wanted to completely change the world. The power of the ruins of God reappeared in everyone's eyes. However, this time, the power of the ruins of God seemed to be different from before. The power of the ruins of God swept across the space, bringing along the spirit body that looked like Long Yu and Yi Ziwei, and spreading out in all directions. Wherever it swept through, all the power in the space was destroyed and completely devoured by the power of the ruins of God. All the power turned into nothingness. Long Yu and the others were also swept by the power of the ruins of God, but they did not turn into nothingness. Instead, it was as if all the power in their bodies had been stripped away, including the existence of divine power. They all disappeared in an instant. The power of the divine text, the power of the divine ability, the power of the absolute beginning, all of these powers had disappeared from this world. Split the heavens. The Dragonman demon god raised his hand and immediately opened up a brand new world. The entire universe began to explode from the center. New stars, new light, were born from a brand new world. In this world, there was no power of the divine text, no divine ability, no divine power, no divine spirit. In the end, there was only the law. In this world, all living beings must operate according to the law. The law is everything. You, Come with me to make the law. I will become the most respected existence in this new world. The God who made the law will not participate in the operation of the world. We can only watch it develop from outside. The Dragon Man demon god looked at the new world with an indifferent look in his eyes. This child seemed to have seen through it all at once. Or perhaps he felt that this was more fun. Create a world of his own. In this world, he was a god. Outside this world, he was also a god. In the outside world, the power of Long Yu and all the other gods had disappeared, including the demigods, the ruler's secret realm, the divine ability's secret realm. All the cultivators have been transformed by the power of the ruins of God into ordinary people. These ordinary people had lost their power, but they retained the life they had before. They could live until they died of old age. The gods of the Light Clan had also lost their power, but they had almost eternal life. Some of the gods of the Light Clan were very curious about the new world, so they threw themselves into it and became one of the laws made by the Dragon Man demon god. Long Yu was invited to become the one who made the laws. However, he stood at the edge of the new world and looked into it. He did not speak for a long time. The Big Bang, galaxies, stars, planets, satellites, all the rules of operation were made by the Dragon Man demon god. The gods of the Light Clan are too fast. They limit the speed of light to 300,000 kilometers per second. The rules of time can only go forward, not backward, and it cannot speed up or slow down. At this rate, the Milky Way will appear soon. Earth will also appear one day. Maybe a guy named Long Yu will appear, and then he will be chosen to save the old world. Dragon Man, demon god, dragon head, and human body. Pangu created the sky. This kid, Long Yu, took one last look at the Dragon Man demon god. In his previous life, the legend of Pangu and Huaxia was that he had a dragon head and human body when he created the world. It turned out that everything had been predetermined. In a book that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.